Weza, President of AGRA, Mrs. Claudia Sangor, founder of AgroBabe, and Dr. Ishmahan Elwafi, Executive Managing Director of CGIAR. She was around earlier. I guess she will join us. So we'll start this conversation.
Alice is not here, but I think she's going to join us.
Yes, I think she's going to join us. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be able to have this conversation with amazing women. And I'm going to start with this first question is, in your opinion, how can we accelerate action within food systems?
Thank you very much. I think, it's so wonderful to have again a group of women talking about the subject matter that is of critical importance, that is really about lives and livelihoods, and that is food. It's very important. I see from where I am over the last 40 years, where I've been involved in development, that so much has been said and so much has been done also. And I am so glad that, there is the the youth that is interested in agriculture. During my days, when you want to go to the agriculture department at the university, people will say, but why? Didn't we educate you to be a lawyer, to be an economist, to be this and that? Nowadays, at least, agriculture has become, one of the key sectors and, of interest to the young ones. So there is a lot to be done. But, for us to really move on, first of all, we have to understand that food systems means that we need to develop the ecosystem. Two is that there is a collaboration and coordination. It's not only the Ministry of Agriculture that would make it. It's the whole, government system plus, the rest, that is the private sector, the whole institutions, research institutions, academic institutions that could make it happen. And that holistic approach is of critical importance. And besides that, also we need to monitor and evaluate. That's what the President Kagame was saying. Assessing what we have done and really correcting the deficiencies and rectifying it and planning for the future is of critical importance. The youth, the population is growing. 2050, Africa would be India plus China. If the population in India and China stagnate, our population would be at that level, the two countries together. And therefore, we need to feed this. What are the critical grains that we need to grow? So these are things we have to have a foresight planning. And the third is for the youth, what I would say is that, $50 billion, $50 to $70 billion import is a market. It's an effective demand. Work for it, And for us, it's very important that we really make sure that, the young ones really are in the forefront because they are the future and they are the current, the present and the future. And we really need to empower them. And we have to make sure that they get the space they deserve. Yeah.
Thank you. Claudia, je vais venir sur toi et tout de suite, son Excellence Nardos Bekele parlait de développer un écosystème. Pour toi, aujourd'hui, en tant que jeune femme agroéconomiste, ingénieure agronome, c'est quoi le frein à cet écosystème-là? C'est quoi ce frein-là qui ne nous permet pas encore de développer l'écosystème comme on le voudrait?
Alors, je ne dirais pas le frein, mais plutôt les freins, parce qu'il y en a beaucoup. Et un qui me parle le plus et que je rencontre le plus dans le secteur dans lequel j'évolue, notamment dans la création de contenu et le fait de vouloir pousser le plus de jeunes à se lancer, c'était d'abord le manque d'informations. Ou peut-être qu'il y a des informations, mais les informations sont un peu trop techniques et ne sont pas everybody friendly. Donc tout le monde ne comprendrait pas forcément une fiche technique de comment faire pousser du piment, par exemple, qu'on retrouverait sur Google facilement. Ou ce serait difficile de taper sur Internet et de trouver, par exemple, un guide simple, étape par étape, sur comment lancer un projet agricole. Donc je pense que l'un des freins, en tout cas, qu'on va rencontrer le plus, ça va être l'information. Et là, j'ai parlé de l'information au niveau de la formation, mais c'est aussi l'information par rapport à certaines opportunités qui existent, que certaines personnes méritent d'avoir, mais ne sont pas forcément au courant, que ce soit des subventions, des opportunités de financement. La communication que ces bailleurs de fonds utilisent n'est pas forcément adaptée à la nouvelle génération, je trouve. Donc ça, c'est aussi un défi, un frein. Et dernièrement, au niveau des événements, là, on a vu qu'avec AFS Forum, il y a eu énormément de communication qui a été faite par les jeunes, et donc on se retrouve avec beaucoup de jeunes. Et en général, les forums, moi, quand j'y vais, je m'excuse du terme, il y a quasiment que des vieux en général. Alors que c'est censé être un forum de jeunes. Et donc là aussi, il y a probablement un problème de communication. Donc tout tourne autour de ça. Voilà.
Et je voudrais poser une question au docteur Ishman par rapport à ce que Claudia vient de dire. Aujourd'hui, effectivement, il y a des freins, certes, mais je pense qu'il y a aussi de l'espoir. Et donc, vous, qu'est-ce qui vous rend optimiste quant à l'avenir de cette jeunesse africaine-là?
Is it okay if I do it in English?
Of course.
Yeah. So what makes me hopeful is that the continent is awaked by now. So we heard about the import bill of $70 billion. The number says by 2030 it's going to be $100 billion. So we heard the language around food sovereignty for the continent. So I think really the fact that there is a realization of the need to produce on the continent what we need in the continent, the fact that all the political sphere or political decision makers are pressured by the youth in the streets to give them hope, to give them job, to give them an opportunity, and to create that opportunity for them. So I think there is a pressure moment and a recognition moment that is quite important. And just to go back to why it's not working, how could we accelerate it, I think we have to start with a plan. And the plan should include everything. You can't do the education, but you don't have the infrastructure. Or you do the investment without the right policies and regulation. The plan should include all of it. And I think I was just talking to Claudia just before, for a country like Senegal, in its Carrefour, to have salads coming from France, it shouldn't be accepted to start with. Because if there is anything easy to grow, it's salads. It's 35 days, 40 days, and you have it. So there is, and in it, it's a pure policy and regulation. And biosafety. If you go to the Carrefour guy, he will tell you, I don't trust the system. So what does it take? It's a biosafety, is knowledge, is capacity to produce what is needed. So I think really we have been always doing the things and looking for the market. Given if Africa is really serious about it, you start from the market and you go back. And there you need technology, you need innovation. Again, just as an example, irrigation, and even the president of Senegal mentioned it. He said the farmers are at the mercy of the weather. So if you have irrigation, you reduce the fragility of that farmer to the weather. If you have the right mechanization, you reduce the time they are spending on graduary work. So there is a lot of technologies that are a given in many parts of the world. I spent the summer mostly in Asia, between China and Japan, and it's amazing the small mechanization I saw there. We don't have it, because we have been always thinking mechanization as a huge machine, the way they do it in North America or Europe, whereas what we needed always has been the small mechanization to our farmers. It fits the small-scale farmers we have in Africa, but B, it's much cheaper also. So there is really a conundrum. We have to completely change, and we have to have a plan, and the plan has to be holistic, so we can put it in place.
Yeah, and we have to change our mindsets. President Paul Kagame mentioned it earlier. But Honorable Bekele, why does it take this much time to put in place the policies needed? We're given the example of salad right now, but this morning Larry was talking about carrots and coffee coming from overseas. We all experience it. I've seen some milk in the Gambia that comes from Germany. Why is it taking so much time for maybe our leaders to put in place policies, real policies, that will change things up?
Yeah, I think, the understanding that a policy just concerns one ministry is a wrong thing, okay? A policy that is applied should come from the people, evidenced, and, it should be all-inclusive, and all should participate in it. A policies, is not just something that is in ink, in a paper. That's not policy. I mean, we have got many policies. Policies after policies, strategies after strategies, but the most important thing is application and implementation, like you rightly said. And implementation cannot be put in place in a very fragmented way. Implementation requires a holistic approach. And I'll give you an example. I was just telling, our colleagues this morning. For example, when I was working in Uganda in the 1990s, early 1990s, can you imagine? So what we said is that, listen, we're giving agriculture priority because it came as a result of the fact that we wanted to open up the borders, meaning that the EAC was being revived. And for the EAC to be revived, we did an impact study, and the impact study showed that the comparative age for Uganda was in agriculture. So we had to give agriculture, the right place. And what we did is that we shifted the Ministry of Agriculture to be under, the profile of the Vice President of the country. Because then the Vice President has the authority to bring all the other ministers, has the authority to bring the academic institutions, the research institutions, and all of them to work. And that's why we surmounted the problem, of increased production, less production. I mean, there was really a need to augment the production. There was a need to augment the productivity, and therefore that's what happened. And therefore, everything should be geared towards the focus, one focus. When we want to focus on agriculture, everything should be really on that because it's interrelated, intertwined. When you talk about industrialization, it should be about agro-industries. When you talk about private sector, it should be agro-enterprises, and everything should be really talking to the priority that you give, So, and in a way, in Africa, what has happened over the years is that when there is a crisis, we wallow in the crisis and we forget the whole long-term, trajectory, and therefore we focus on something that is just an event rather than addressing the whole thing. So we need to have a vision, we need to have a long-term planning, and we need to focus, and we need to put all our resources, human capital, financial, into that, and not just, policy in paper doesn't have any meaning to the development or to the socio-economic transformation vision and purpose of the government. And it's not only a government business, it's all society business. And everybody should focus, understanding that there is a benefit to be garnered from that. So, that is what is very important. And I'm so glad now that the young ones are interested in agriculture. We need to really support them. Claudia was saying all the ingredients. When we say we're going to support an enterprise, we say, okay, $50,000, as if the $50,000 is a panacea for everything. No, it requires all kinds of support, towards that. So the judicious mix of all kinds of support towards agro-enterprises is very critical and very important. Unless we change our mindset and we move from this segmented and fragmented approach to a more holistic, coordinated, cohesive approach, we will not surmount the problem. So I think, this is what we should do. Issues of the land, we have to move from land acquisition to land use, We can say 60% of arable land. It doesn't mean anything unless we have a policy towards a proper land use. For example, for the young ones, leasing, is very important. And there are examples everywhere. In Benin, we made sure that, the young ones had lease from even the chieftains, the chiefs that were appropriating and keeping idle land. We went to tell them, listen, you can get money if you lease this land to the young ones, and we guaranteed. And, so many things have to be put in play to make a difference. And that's why we didn't get where we are, because we are, looking at things in a very segmented, piecemeal manner. So, I hope, all these talk shows would result to something concrete in action. Thanks.
Claudia, je veux te poser une question sur la question culturelle, la dimension culturelle aujourd'hui. Donc, comment est-ce que les dimensions culturelles et identitaires africaines peuvent-elles être intégrées dans la transformation des systèmes alimentaires pour garantir qu'elles soient non seulement durables, mais aussi enracinées dans nos réalités locales?
Merci pour la question, parce qu'on est dans un débat actuel avec ma communauté. Je pense que vous connaissez tous le matcha. Ou votre fille peut-être, ou votre cousine, votre nièce vous a déjà parlé du matcha. Because it's trendy right now. Everybody's wanna drink matcha. On a du moringa. Le moringa, c'est 10 fois plus de nutriments que le matcha. Le matcha nous vient du Japon. On cherche le matcha dans tous les cafés de Dakar, de Abidjan, de partout dans le monde. It's trendy. Alors qu'on a des ressources, on a des matières premières qu'on peut valoriser, mais on est tellement centré sur ce qui se passe à l'extérieur et on aime tellement rendre à la mode ce qui se fait à l'extérieur qu'on en oublie, ou parfois même on ne sait pas, c'est juste par pur ne pas savoir tout simplement. On oublie ce qu'on a localement et on va consommer ce qu'il y a à l'extérieur. Le chia, le matcha, et j'en passe. Il y a plein d'autres super aliments, comme on les appelle, de l'extérieur, où on a 10 fois mieux chez nous qu'on n'utilise pas. Donc, rien qu'avec cet exemple-là, je pense que ça règle la question. On a le baobab, j'en ai parlé. Et j'ai partagé une story avec ma communauté où je leur ai montré en fait une Américaine qui était en train de vendre en gros du baobab, du buis pour ceux qui connaissent, dans un packaging extraordinaire, bien présenté. Et elle était en train de vendre en fait les qualités nutritionnelles du buis aux États-Unis, aux Américains. Et quand je leur ai montré la vidéo, ils étaient tous choqués. Oh my God, this is insane. How can we do? Oh la la, blah blah blah. I said, you want to drink matcha, right? Okay, drink matcha. They will just take your super aliment and then brought it to America. That's it. And do the money they need to make over there. Et donc, tout ça pour dire quoi? C'est qu'on a tout ce qu'il nous faut ici chez nous. On a tout ce qu'il nous faut pour conquérir le monde en fait. En termes de super aliments, comme j'ai parlé du buis, du matcha et j'en passe, il y a le solum. Tout à l'heure, Sini Samba en a parlé avec tout ce qu'elle fait avec sa marque pour bébé ou Céréales House de Adja Kanté. On a énormément de céréales, de fruits, de légumes ancestraux qui sont là, qu'on a délaissés pour des produits qui nous viennent de l'étranger, donc qu'on n'arrive pas à produire, qu'on est obligé d'importer et donc qui enrichissent les autres. Et donc, je pense qu'il nous manque ce self-esteem-là. On a un manque d'amour propre. Et quand je vois justement ces trends sur le matcha et autres, où on se l'approprie comme si c'était nos produits, et qu'à côté, on préfère laisser tout ce qui nous appartient, je pense qu'il y a un vrai travail de self-esteem à faire sur nous-mêmes, sur nos cultures, sur nos valeurs, pour pouvoir vendre davantage tout ce qu'on a. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. Docteur Ishmahan, je voudrais vous poser une question sur l'innovation scientifique. Aujourd'hui, selon vous, quelles sont les innovations scientifiques et technologiques qui devraient être prioritaires pour accélérer cette transformation des systèmes alimentaires en Afrique?
So there are so many innovations that we need to provide. Again, you can't say there is one single one. It's not a single bullet solution. It's many of them. But all of them are mature in other parts of the world, and we don't have them yet on the African continent. And most of them still are imported. So there is both the side, like, Haile Mariam talked about the yield gap, for example. So the yield gap, it's due to the wrong seeds, the wrong agronomic practice, the lack of irrigation, and so on and so forth. I remember also the president mentioned the waste and loss in the value chain. Again, it's due because we don't have electricity, we don't have infrastructure, we don't have the right methodologies for preserving our produce. So there's a lot of technologies. There isn't only one, it's many of them. And I think the beauty of it is that as you bring those, there is the education and the training that was already mentioned, but there is also the opportunities for work for the youth. So it's almost a no-brainer. But if you don't, for example, if we're gonna go back to the salads, it will be quite easier, and go back to the salad, it's quite easy, because each one of us has produced salad at some point in their garden or in their balconies. So if you want to have the salad here, so you have to put a regulation to make sure it's done properly here. It's gonna be much more fresher, it's gonna be much less expensive. So if the salad comes from France, it means there is enough revenue for it to come the whole way in planes to here. So there is already an incentive for people to start producing it. What would be the blockage? It's access to the seeds and access to the infrastructure. And then that's where the government should really do a proper study and provide those incentives to the youth to produce it and de-risk their investment. Because most of the time, in the agricultural sector, it's a very risky business. And that's why even many of us that work in agriculture would never have a farm, a commercial farm. So they might have a little bit of things. So there is also the financial component, the policy component, the regulation component, but there are so many innovations. Like if I go back to Claudia example, there is a need more now for local species. There is a huge awareness around it. The matcha one worked very well because of the marketing. That's why. It's worldwide. The quinoa one, it's not marketing. It was FAO that did it as the year of quinoa because of Bolivia and Peru put in an application through the UN, and then the UN declared it as a year, and then it got. So there is different methodologies to bring back those species. And the beauty of it now is that there are technologies that can allow us to bring all these species back. So, and that's the beautiful marriage or the beautiful combination of local knowledge, ancestral knowledge with new technologies that will allow us to get quicker to the market in a much more nutritional way or much more sustainable way as well.
Is there hope?
There is definitely hope. What we need, it's a really political will and a plan that is really clear and that we put in place together. We bring all the components together and we think it in advance. You can't, for example, push your farmer to produce more, let's say, millet without really having the varieties of millet, without understanding the fertilizers that you need for the millet, without having the processing for millet. And this is a bit of a colonial mentality. The colonial mentality was, you produce what we need, we're gonna take it to Europe, and we're gonna process it. Now it's different. You can't do it the same way. You have to produce it, you have to process it, and even if you export it with add value, because that add value give you work, give you employment to the youth, but above all, it's a much more return on investment. It's incomparable with the raw material.
Thank you. Honorable Bekele, is it possible to have a continental strategy, and what would it take to put that in place?
We have the Continental strategy. We have got the CADF. We have got the Kampala, declaration now. We have all what it takes in terms of instruments. But what we require to do is to act, to implement, and to be serious about that, and to know that, no single entity can do it, but together that we can do it. And therefore, I think, it's very important that, we go out of this, whatever it is, summit or, conference, with a commitment, individual and collective, that we implement what is there. And I think, all our research institutions, our academic institutions, our, students that are there, our planning ministers, our agriculture ministers, we all have to really work together, including, support institutions and our partners. I guess, the time to act is now. Africa is rising, not with us, the old ones, but with the young ones. They are demanding, and they have the right to demand. And, the space is there, and hopefully, with our support and with everybody's support, we'll be able to implement, the strategies and policies that are put in place already. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. That is, something that we have to avoid. We keep on echoing, repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting, something different. Nothing would come to be different, It will be the same thing again. It's a waste of time. And therefore, implementations right now, and my agency is trying to do that and trying to put in place the monitoring and evaluation instruments. And when I say my agency, I'm sorry, that is your agency, and you should demand, because it's, the agency that you have, and we need to put the monitoring and evaluation tools that are necessary with the other partners to make sure that each and every actor or stakeholder in this whole process is accountable.
Thank you. Claudia, je voudrais peut-être terminer sur cette note par rapport à la jeunesse. Tu es très influente sur les réseaux sociaux aujourd'hui et à tous les niveaux, parce qu'on a parlé de mettre en place aussi un écosystème, et il faut que chacun joue son rôle. Mais aujourd'hui, quels sont les leviers concrets qu'il faut activer pour qu'il y ait plus de jeunes femmes comme toi qui s'intéressent et qui s'investissent dans l'agriculture?
Il faut des modèles de réussite, je pense. C'est la seule façon pour que quelqu'un dise « j'ai envie de faire comme elle » parce que tu as réussi. Donc je pense qu'on a une mission, nous qui avons l'opportunité d'être on stage, d'être vus, d'être entendus, de pouvoir porter ce message et de surtout être de bons exemples. Et je pense que ça va se faire automatiquement. Je pense que quand un petit veut être Superman ou Spider-Man, c'est parce que d'une manière ou d'une autre, Superman ou Spider-Man l'a inspiré. Parce qu'il a envie de sauter au mur, parce qu'il a envie de s'accrocher à telle ou telle chose. Et il y a une nouvelle génération aujourd'hui qui est là, de plus en plus, et qui commence à prendre sa place, qui démocratise le secteur agricole sur les réseaux sociaux. Ça devient trendy, ça ne plaît pas à certaines personnes, mais on en a besoin, en fait. On a besoin que ce soit à la mode. Et je pense que le moyen le plus simple, en fait, d'avoir plus de personnes comme nous, c'est le phénomène d'identification. Tant que les gens, des jeunes, s'identifieront à nous, si je prends mon exemple à moi, je suis jeune, je suis une jeune fille qui a moins de la trentaine, qui a fait mes études comme tout le monde, qui a travaillé un tout petit peu, qui a créé mon entreprise aujourd'hui et qui suis allée sur les réseaux sociaux juste parce que j'avais envie de changer les choses. Juste avec cette volonté-là, j'ai pris ma caméra un jour, je me suis assise, j'ai dit je veux créer mon cabinet de consultance et je vais passer par les réseaux sociaux pour pouvoir trouver des clients. Rien que de cette volonté-là, c'est parti. Et en racontant cette histoire à ces gens, je pense que chacun peut retrouver une partie de notre histoire en eux et ensuite faire les choses à leur manière. Et donc, je pense que c'est comme ça que ça va être un effet domino, en donnant le bon exemple, en continuant tout simplement à faire du bon travail. Et je pense que là, je vois de plus en plus de personnes se lancer sur les réseaux sociaux. Dans 10 ans, on n'aura plus ce problème de « il faut qu'on rende l'agriculture attractable, sexy or whatever ». Non, non, on sera passé à une autre étape, je pense.
Merci, merci beaucoup. Honorable, in 2 minutes, closing remarks, any message, any key messages you want to share with us, with the youth of Africa, with stakeholders, with leaders, with the presidents that were here this morning for future of agriculture in Africa?
I think the most important thing for Africans, us, is to have confidence. Confidence in ourselves, understanding that we have all what it takes. We keep on talking about it. When it comes to really exhibiting it, we are short of that. So if we have that confidence in ourselves, in our children, the young ones, in all the resources that we have, and the energy to transform this into wealth, it's very important. Because we know for sure with our own resources, others are building their wealth and not us. And therefore, confidence for me is the most important thing, and the shift in the mindset. Yeah,
thank you. Claudia, un message aux jeunes femmes, aux jeunes hommes, aux jeunes Africains, aux dirigeants?
Je vais parler avec mes confrères et consoeurs de la même génération que moi. Je vais juste vous demander une chose, c'est d'avoir confiance en vous, de vous imposer. Chacun à sa manière, de là où il est, peut apporter quelque chose à son économie, que ce soit de votre téléphone, de votre champ, de votre bureau, de votre laboratoire, peu importe ce que vous faites, vous pouvez apporter quelque chose à la société, vous êtes utile à la société et la société a besoin de vous. Donc ne vous sentez pas inutile ou ne pensez pas que qu'est-ce que je vais faire à ma petite échelle, qu'est-ce que ça pourra apporter, non. C'est ma première vidéo sur mon canapé dans mon appartement d'étudiante qui me permet d'être là où je suis aujourd'hui. Et je pense que si je n'avais pas pensé, si j'avais pensé de manière négative, je ne serais pas là aujourd'hui. Donc soyez positifs, faites les choses que vous aimez, soyez authentiques et surtout, conquérez le monde, osez, imposez-vous. Voilà.
Merci, merci. Effectivement, ça mérite des applaudissements. Dr. Ishmael?
Pour rajouter à ce que mes collègues ont déjà dit, je crois que la confiance est très importante. Mais aussi, je crois, c'est stop the rhetoric and act. It takes really that you go and produce and get into the market. So we need to invest in women, we need to invest in youth, and we need to invest with A to Z solutions. So not a piece of the value chain or a food system, all of it. And we need to push our politicians to prioritize it. Because right now, maybe agriculture is not the highest of the priorities, but if they think about it properly, it should be the highest, because with it, we can reduce the bill of health through nutrition. With it, we can reduce the problems with employment and with return on investment. And when you have a crisis like COVID or you have a crisis like a war, unless you produce some of your food, you're going to have a hell of a problem. So in all of this, agriculture should become a priority, particularly in a continent where we have land, we have youth, and we have so much to develop, including our local species. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Un grand merci à ces femmes qui font des choses extraordinaires. On peut les applaudir encore bien fort. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. On applaudit encore bien fort, s'il vous plaît. Très fort. Et on espère qu'au prochain forum, on aura beaucoup plus de femmes, de jeunes femmes comme Claudia, qui est vraiment un modèle à encourager, à suivre. Et comme elle dit, on peut commencer de son petit canapé, de sa chambre d'étudiant. Sans plus tarder, je vais appeler le docteur Abebe Haley Gabriel, Assistant Director General at FAO, for his remarks. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. I know I am going to speak after a very interesting panel discussion, but also this morning, very powerful messages coming from Excellencies, the Presidents, and also other high-level dignitaries. One message that we got from both sessions is let's talk less and let's work our talk. It's a pleasure to speak before you, representing the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, as we come together on this very important theme this afternoon to review progress and advocate for mutual accountability for results. You may have heard the emphasis on mutual accountability both by the presidents but also by our sisters who spoke before me. I believe we must start by taking a moment to make an honest reflection on whether we are truly making the progress that we envisioned. This will help us chart a bold course for the future, and this should start with asking ourselves the tough questions. Just 1 month ago, many of us attended the UN Food System Summit +4 stock-taking moment hosted on our continent in Ethiopia. The question is about whether we were able to come out of that stock-taking moment with definite assertion that we have been making real progress over the last 4 years. Secondly, CAADP is now in its third phase following the Kampala Declaration, representing over 2 decades of continental commitment since 2003, Maputo, then 2014, Malabo, and 2024 in Kampala, which in a way puts Africa on a different course compared to other continents. Other continents, not much of them have the same kind of continental frameworks. We do. We should ask ourselves the question that, are we truly implementing CAADP with the urgency it deserves? And is it helping us to make real progress? And what does the evidence reveal? The 2024 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report that was launched a month ago during the recent UN Food System Summit +4 paints a sobering picture for our continent. Just to use one important indicator related to SDG 2, hunger in Africa continues to rise with an estimated 307 million people, and this represents more than 20% of our population facing hunger in 2024. This is an increase from just under 19% in 2022, 2 years before that. And globally, 1 in 5 hungry people are in Africa. This is very sober. So as we gather here today, we cannot shy away from these tough questions. Why are we not seeing the breakthrough we need? What barriers are preventing innovation and full implementation of our agri-food systems transformation? You may have heard Dr. Ismahan outlining the kind of things that we need to take in order to fill the gaps. We know the solutions. Why can't we take action? The answers to these questions will guide our next steps. Distinguished participants, amidst this challenge, we also see inspiring examples across the continent. Several countries are making encouraging progress, offering valuable lessons and experiences, sharing opportunities. FAO's recent publication titled Transforming Food and Agriculture Through a Systems Approach through a systems approach, offers practical guide for policymakers and practitioners to adopt integrated systems-based practices for true transformation. This approach is already yielding results, with over 40 African countries having aligned investment plans with CADEP, leading to productivity gains of up to 30% in targeted agroecological zones. So it's possible to bring about tangible results. And innovations are driving this transformation. Young people are at the center of this. You have heard it this morning. I can mention some of those trailblazers who are attending this very forum. I hope they are in the room. I haven't met them. I am speaking about the likes of Femi Adekoya, known as the Flying Farmer, who is pioneering precision agriculture using drones, or Afyong Williams, who is building her agribusiness Real Fruits to create jobs, add value, and link farmers to markets. I could go on and on citing such groundbreaking examples from across the continent. The point here is that they share similar stories. They remind us that Africa's young people are not the next generation of farmers. As is often said, they are already transforming Africa's agri-food systems today. What is expected of us to scale up of such stories is to ensure they have a voice in decision-making, a seat at the table, and the opportunity to unleash their potential. At FAO, we are supporting this call by hosting the World Food Forum in Rome each year in October, where youth drive the conversation on climate action, on digital innovation and agribusiness solutions. National chapters in over 70 countries are now fostering entrepreneurship and leadership. And on skills development, which is key in this, the FAO and UNIDO Opportunities for Youth in Africa program has trained over 30,000 young people and supported over 600 youth-led enterprises with encouraging results. Transforming agri-food systems cannot happen without investment finance. Inclusive financing mechanisms such as result-based financing and risk management tools are vital to attract private investment and accelerate climate action. FAO's Hand-in-Hand Investment Forum, which will be held in October during the World Food Forum in Rome, connects investors and development partners with countries and regions that need targeted support in agriculture and food systems. The forum provides a unique opportunity to drive concrete action, facilitating new partnerships and mobilizing investment resources in a way that benefits all value chain actors and stakeholders. For the participating countries, the forum is a chance to engage directly with potential investors, align resources with priorities, and ensure that agri-food systems can reach their full potential. I'm glad to note that, to recognize my colleague, the chief economist of FAO, who is driving this amongst us. I don't want to call you, you're going to speak. FAO also emphasizes the importance of inclusive policy environment that reflects the needs of small-scale farmers, indigenous people, and rural women. This week, together with AWARD, we're launching the findings from a report called The Status of Women in Agri-Food Systems in Sub-Saharan Africa. This analysis shows that pervasive gender inequalities are stifling productivity. 3 out of 4 working women in Africa are employed in agri-food systems. And women make up very close to half of the agri-food workforce. Yet, too often they are denied secure land rights and access to credit and face many other barriers. Addressing these inequalities is not only a matter of justice, it's also a prerequisite for transformation. We underscore and champion digital tools, as key enablers. The FAO Digital Villages initiative has reached over 120,000 farmers here in Senegal, the host country, with advisory services in local languages. In Malawi, in Rwanda, in Zimbabwe, among other countries, extension officers are being trained to use AI tools, and localized AI chatbots are being piloted to enhance extension services. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we strive to meet the challenges ahead, we cannot overemphasize the crucial significance of innovation, real ownership of initiatives, effective collaboration, targeted investments, and mutual accountability. I wish to encourage us all to seize this moment and deliver on the promise of transformation for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. I want to thank you. My colleague, the colleague that I mentioned to you, who is leading the Hand-in-Hand Investment Forum, is Maximo Torero, who is seated here. I understand he's going to speak later. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abebe, and thank you for reminding us that we should not leave anyone behind. Thank you very much. It's now my honor to call the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger. He's now the African Union Special Envoy on Food Systems, Dr. Ibrahim Hassan Mayaki. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît.
Good afternoon. I had prepared some remarks, speech, but the Spanish have a say. They say, don't rain on a wet terrain. And I think Maximo will understand it. Llover sobre mojado. There are so many things which have been said this morning, but I tried to extract them from the speech I was going to read. So my exercise will be to try to focus on a few things, very humbly, which might not have been touched upon. So I will try and, well, we'll see how it works. The big picture. The big picture, and I'm going to talk about development globally. The main obstacle to Africa's development is its fragmentation. If China had 50 plus countries, China wouldn't be what it is today. Africa has 50 plus countries. If we do not solve that colonial fragmentation through integration, economic integration, it will be very difficult for 40 plus of our countries to really reach a certain level of development. You will have a few of them, 6, 7, or 8 that you know, but the majority won't be able to. It's a question of dimension, it's a question of market, and it's a question of spatial management. When we plan, we think about, macroeconomic dimensions, sectoral dimensions, but we frequently forget the space, the spatial dimension. And somehow the African Union was created in order to tackle that fragmentation by providing a thinking about the space and moving integration, spatial integration which can be connoted to economic integration. So we, in its delivery process of integration, the African Union has a three-step delivery process. First of all, we design a continental strategy, and that continental strategy is regionalized. We have CADEP, now we are at CADEP 3, Kampala, and Kampala needs to be regionalized. And that's what we are, that's why we have national agricultural investment plans, and then CADEP, regional agricultural investment plans, and then national agricultural investment plans. So continental dimension, regional dimension, national dimension. And these three instruments need to be coherent. If there is no coherence, there is no integration. And if there is no integration, then it's hard to move, whether it's agriculture, energy, education, you name it. So my first point, first message I want to put on the table is that let us not forget about integration. Without integration, development will be very difficult for our continent. And as a matter of fact, when we were rethinking Africa's infrastructure through PIDA, which is a program for infrastructure development in Africa, we had to review all what had been done during the colonial times. Because what you had during the colonial times, just as a summary, was a road leading from a mine to a port. It was not infrastructure for development. So most of the other sectors are in the same thinking. So integration is essential for agricultural development. And agricultural development, by the way, needs energy, needs trade, et cetera, et cetera. So it's multi-sectoral, and we have talked about this multi-sectorality. So there lies the complexity of a developmental issue. How you combine multi-sectorality with economic integration processes. And if you don't combine the two, then you keep on repeating the same technical solutions. You make some progresses here and there, but what is called transformational development does not happen. Point number two, on the space. By 2050, you know the figures, Africa's space will be mostly urbanized. And that urbanization will have a consequence on agriculture because, just small parenthesis, even now, we are a net importer of yogurt, but I won't elaborate on that. The consequence will be that the diets will change, and with the diets changing, the way we envisage agricultural transformation, we need to integrate that dimension. Today, we don't know exactly what is rural and what is urban. And if you went from the airport to your hotel in Dakar, you can easily have this image in mind. You don't know exactly what is urban and what is rural. And the administrative definition of a village or a city, which is officially described, does not correspond to the reality that we are living. So we are planning in a space that we don't exactly know because urbanization has broken that space. Second difficulty in terms of second level of complexity. So urbanization will be an essential part of thinking the transformation of our food systems. My third point is about the youth. And I really applaud all the young agropreneurs who came here and who really demonstrated with clarity and determination what they were able to do, and by themselves in difficult ecosystems, etc. But I just want to send a message as a former prime minister. Requesting a seat at the table is not the way to go. Because the assumption is that you will have naturally a seat at the table. Youth liberation is exactly the same process as women's liberations. Women didn't ask for a seat at the table. They fought for a seat at the table by organizing themselves, by requesting to vote, etc., historically in many contexts. For the youth, it's exactly the same thing. So we shouldn't be fooled by the fact that, sometimes you will be lucky and have leaders who call you to sit at the table, but it won't always be the case. So the way to go, given the fact that you are the majority, is to get organized. To get organized and think in terms of liberation in a context of power relationships, which is not in your favor. So if you have an elite which is conscious of the fact that you need a seat at the table, you might have it. If you have an elite which is not conscious of the fact that you have a seat at the table, you won't have it unless you organize yourself in order to have a seat at the table. And I think it's important. I was in Japan at TCAD 15 days ago with my colleague Amadi. So we met the Ministry of Agriculture, and before we had met the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And I asked at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, in agri-food systems, how many Japanese startups do you support in Africa? They told us around 370. How many of them are successful? All of them are successful. They are concentrated mainly Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, but all of them are successful. Same business model, supported by MITI, the ministry, and supported financially by banks, and supported technically. These are Japanese startups, 30, 32, 33 years old. The median number of staff that they have is around between 250 and 300, from Ghana to South Africa to Zambia. So they have an ecosystem which allows them to perform. So it's from potential to performance. And what these youngsters this morning demonstrated to us is that if you look carefully at their business model, it has almost identical characteristics. What is lacking sometimes is a stronger push from the governments. But I'm saying again, as a former prime minister, and it's a mea culpa, don't only wait for governments. Organize yourself, because you have to go through a liberation process. Now, fourth point. We mentioned many technical solutions that can help us deal with the issue of seeds, yields, productivity, land management, etc., water. These these technical solutions, as my dear friend Ismail likes to repeat, these have to be in the pockets of the farmers. If it is not digestible by farmers, by having technical solutions in their pockets, I mean, transformation will hardly happen. Remember, after structural adjustment programs, the extension services were erased. So, by the way, the Japanese startups I was talking about, they are paying for their own extension services. Imagine. So, science and innovation in the pocket of the farmers is an essential ingredient. Why is it an essential ingredient? And I go to my last point. Because it helps to accelerate. Why is acceleration important? We have 1.3 billion inhabitants. We feed them, well, you heard the diagnosis, and my friend Massimo will come back to that. But imagine the mountain we need to climb for 2.5 billion. We can climb a mountain, but we cannot climb a mountain slowly. We have to climb a mountain by accelerating. And that's where science comes in. So acceleration is a critical point that will help us attain self-sufficiency, sovereignty, etc. And if we do not accelerate, given that mountain to climb, we might be in a kind of Sisyph. I don't know if Sisyph is framed in the same way in English. We might be in a kind of Sisyph attitude. Acceleration is important. And if we want to accelerate, then comes the issue of institutions. If we have institutions which are slow, how do we accelerate? So the question is, how do we build institutions and governance systems that can allow us to accelerate in the transformation of food systems? So I hope I didn't bore you. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I need a lot of energy. Do I still have you? Are you still around? Are you still around? Because this is an exciting moment. We're going to take a visual journey through the data that's driving decisions. And this is more than a report. It's a roadmap. Please watch this video.
For over a decade, one report has been Africa's compass for agriculture and food security, the African Agriculture Status Report. Now it evolves because Africa's story is bigger than agriculture alone. Introducing the Africa Food Systems Report. This evolution builds on a powerful legacy. Over the years, the report has tracked Africa's progress. Our agricultural production has grown at 4.3% each year since 2000, the fastest in the world. And today, 43% of our agricultural trade stays within Africa itself. And extreme poverty fell from nearly 60% in the 1990s to about 35% in the mid-2010s. But these gains are fragmented. Progress is real, yet uneven. 1 in 3 children is still stunted, and hunger, once in decline, has begun to rise again in Africa. In response, African leaders' commitment through the 2025 CAADP Kampala Declaration is clear. Africa cannot settle for piecemeal fixes. We must move from fragmented gains to systemic transformation. The Africa Food Systems Report carries forward the authority of the AASR, but with a wider lens to capture the full system that feeds, nourishes, and sustains us. The AFSR 2025 identifies the drivers of that transformation: strong governance, modern infrastructure, innovative finance, sustainability, and knowledge. The Africa Food Systems Report 2025 is more than just a new report. It's a new era. It is Africa's trusted guide, authoritative and forward-looking. It is our map from fragmented gains to systemic transformation, from surviving to thriving, from progress to prosperity. The Africa Food Systems Report 2025, shaping Africa's food future. Our system, our future, our time.
And I would like to welcome our next speaker for his keynote, Mr. Andrew Cox, Director of Strategy at AGRA. Mr. Cox.
Excellences, chers partenaires et collègues, bon après-midi et salam alaikum. C'est pour moi un honneur de prendre la parole devant vous. Ici au Sénégal, pays de la Teranga, un leader visionnaire en matière de sécurité alimentaire et de transformation agricole. Nous lançons aujourd'hui le rapport sur le système alimentaire en Afrique, AFSR, une publication phare d'AGRA. Ce rapport traduit notre ambition: bâtir des systèmes alimentaires résilients, inclusifs et durables, capables de répondre aux urgences de présent et d'ouvrir des perspectives nouvelles pour notre continent. For more than a decade, the State of Africa's Agriculture report has been a benchmark. But in the face of persistent hunger, malnutrition, the climate crisis, and youth unemployment, a different approach has been needed. Agriculture can no longer be addressed in isolation. We need an integrated and comprehensive approach. This report is designed as an annual snapshot of Africa's food systems and its transformation. We present a constant and consistent set of indicators, measuring supply chains, diets, trade, finance, governance, and outcomes such as poverty, stunting, and greenhouse gas emissions. This integrated baseline will allow us to track progress year after year, measure ourselves against our commitments, and ensure accountability. This annual report is intended to be a complement to the biennial review of the CAADP process. The AFSR will provide the evidence base for many of these discussions that we're going to have this year, next year, and the year after. Let's treat it as a mirror showing our progress and a compass to show the way forward. Each year, we hope it will anchor the dialogue that we have, making sure that debates are grounded in African data and African realities. This is certainly part of the role that AGRA hopes to play, as a catalyst, a convener, and partner, supporting governments, farmers, and the private sector to lead. With this report, AGRA provides Africa with a tool for accountability and shared progress, reinforcing this forum as the annual moment where we collectively assess where we're at, to debate and to act. The AFSR is a call to action for Africa and to all of us to build food systems that are resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. And we're shortly going to hear from the lead author, who will present to you some of the conclusions of this first relaunched AFSR report. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Cox. Merci beaucoup. And now it's my honor to call Dr. John Hulimwengu to present his key highlights. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. On lui donne de la force.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. And it's an honor for me to present the highlight of the report. But since we are in Senegal, I wouldn't allow Andrew to beat me on French. So let me shift to French. Donc, on va présenter le rapport de cette année, le rapport sur le système alimentaire en Afrique, les principaux résultats. En fait, ces rapports se positionnent comme un pont entre deux approches que l'Union africaine a adoptées en termes de transformation du secteur agricole. Il y a l'approche avec la déclaration de Maputo et la déclaration de Malabo, qui focalise sur la transformation agricole, et la déclaration de Kampala qui vient pour mettre en place la transformation de l'ensemble du système alimentaire. Donc, les rapports, ce que le rapport a fait, c'est analyser les 30 dernières années, ce que le continent a accompli, et par rapport à cette nouvelle vision de transformation du système alimentaire, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour la suite. Donc, très rapidement, qu'est-ce que le continent a fait de gains, en termes de gains, et vous avez entendu, vous avez vu dans la vidéo. Donc, en termes de production agricole, le continent a fait une croissance de 4,3% de manière consistante sur l'ensemble de cette période-là. Et cette croissance est plus élevée comparée aux autres régions du monde. Cette croissance est alimentée par l'utilisation des intrants agricoles tels que les semences améliorées, la mécanisation, etc., même la digitalisation de l'agriculture. Et because of that, on a observé une augmentation de disponibilité calorique également sur l'ensemble de cette période. Donc ça, c'est ce que le continent a observé. Donc il y a de gains que le continent a engendré pendant cette période-là. Malheureusement, ces gains-là restent encore très... Oui, ces gains, malheureusement, restent très fragmentés. Vous avez suivi même ceux qui m'ont précédé, notamment son Excellence M. Mayaki, qui a parlé de la fragmentation en fait, de ces gains-là. La fragmentation en termes d'abord de composantes. Quand on regarde sur l'ensemble des systèmes alimentaires, il y a des composantes qui performent bien, mais il y en a d'autres qui ne le font pas. Mais comme il s'agit d'un système, lorsqu'il y a une composante du système qui ne fonctionne pas bien, ça affecte la performance de l'ensemble de ces systèmes. Il y a également la fragmentation en termes de temps. Il y a des périodes où l'Afrique s'est bien comportée. Il y a d'autres périodes où ça veut dire qu'on n'a pas pu aligner de manière consistante sur le temps de performance. Et puis, il y a également la fragmentation en termes d'espace. Il y a des espaces au niveau, par exemple, d'un même pays. Il y a des provinces qui marchent bien, il y en a qui ne marchent pas bien. Au niveau de certaines régions, il y a des pays qui fonctionnent bien, qui ne fonctionnent pas bien. Malheureusement, sur l'ensemble, ça donne des résultats qui ne sont pas encourageants. Et justement, on a souligné le retard de croissance chez les enfants qui touche encore un enfant sur 3 de moins de 5 ans. La sous-alimentation atteignent plus, en fait, on a entendu le responsable de FAO, en fait, les chiffres, c'est même à 300 millions de personnes. Donc, en quelque sorte, tous les gains que nous avons obtenus ne se sont pas traduits en termes de réduction de la malnutrition, réduction significative de la pauvreté et réduction significative de l'insécurité alimentaire. Malheureusement, cette fragmentation a touché également les politiques. Donc, on a des politiques qui sont fragmentées en termes il y a des pays où ils ont des très bonnes politiques pour encourager la production et l'adoption des semences améliorées, mais ce n'est pas suffisant parce qu'il y a, par exemple, il n'y a aucune politique sur la sécurité des terres, la sécurisation des terres. Il n'y a pas de politique pour gérer les questions de perte de récolte. Il n'y a pas de politique pour encourager l'accès au marché. Donc, tout ce que nous faisons à un certain point de système alimentaire est complètement perdu parce qu'il n'y a pas de suivi pour prendre avantage de ce gain-là. Il y a également la fragmentation en termes au niveau de chaque pays, d'un pays par exemple, où nous avons le ministère de l'Agriculture qui fait la promotion de l'utilisation d'engrais, mais en même temps le ministère de l'Environnement va dans le sens contraire et donc finalement il n'y a pas cohérence et toutes ces incohérences et inconsistances conduisent malheureusement à érode, si vous voulez, le gain que le continent essaye d'engager dans dans l'une ou l'autre composante de système alimentaire. Maintenant, qu'est-ce que c'est là en termes d'implication? Premièrement, nous devons passer de programmes cloisonnés à des stratégies intégrées. Ça, c'est important. Je crois que ceux qui m'ont précédé l'ont souligné. Il est absolument important qu'au sein d'un même gouvernement, que lorsque le ministère, par exemple, de l'énergie décide de la cartographie de l'énergie, qu'ils prennent en compte le besoin de transformation du secteur agricole. De même, lorsque le ministère des Infrastructures fait la cartographie de routes, la cartographie des voies ferrées, la cartographie de voies fluviales, que cela intègre le besoin de production, le besoin de transformation du secteur agricole. Donc, ça est extrêmement important. Il faut que nous puissions élaborer des politiques inclusives. La crédibilité des politiques dépend de l'inclusivité dans l'élaboration de ces politiques, donc c'est important. En termes de financement, il faut passer de financement de projets à des stratégies de financement pour la transformation à long terme. Dans la déclaration de Kampala, le 10%, les fameux 10%, sont revenus en tant que cible, mais au niveau de Kampala, on essaie d'étendre ces cibles-là au-delà du secteur agricole lui-même pour toucher l'ensemble du système alimentaire. Mais également, il y a une cible de 100 millions d'investissements venant aussi bien du secteur public que du secteur privé, ce qui est important. Et l'autre élément également, l'implication par rapport au rapport, c'est renforcer la gouvernance appuyée par les évidences. En fait, la gouvernance, c'est vraiment le socle de la transformation, si on peut le dire ainsi, parce que la gouvernance définit non simplement le niveau de ressources qu'il faut mobiliser, mais également comment allouer ces ressources. Mais il faut que cette gouvernance soit appuyée par des évidences. Il y en a qui disent que ça coûte cher de produire les données, les connaissances, mais ça coûte même beaucoup plus cher de travailler dans l'ignorance. Donc, il faut absolument que l'on prenne ça en compte. Maintenant, qu'est-ce que cela veut dire pour les jeunes? Je vais terminer par ici. La croissance agricole, telle qu'on a vu induite par l'augmentation de l'utilisation d'intrants, et ces intrants-là, ça inclut la mécanisation, les semences améliorées et la révolution numérique, ça crée les opportunités pour les jeunes. Donc, lorsque le continent prend comme approche la transformation des systèmes alimentaires, cela va au-delà de la ferme, cela va au-delà de la production agricole et ça touche tellement de domaines que ça crée une panoplie d'opportunités pour les jeunes. Deuxièmement, la persistance de la sous-alimentation veut dire aussi qu'on doit impliquer les jeunes, non pas simplement dans les chaînes de valeur, mais également dans les discussions sur même la nature du système alimentaire au niveau de l'Afrique. Et dernièrement, il faut absolument impliquer les jeunes en tant qu'innovateurs, entrepreneurs et acteurs politiques pour passer de gains fragmentés, comme beaucoup l'ont souligné, à des systèmes alimentaires résilients, inclusifs et durables. Je m'arrête ici. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. John. Merci beaucoup. Merci pour cette présentation et merci d'avoir terminé avec les jeunes qu'il faut inclure dans toute la chaîne. Alors, on va passer au prochain panel et je voudrais appeler le Dr. Lawrence Haddad, s'il vous plaît, ainsi que Mrs. Nancy Iraba. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. Mr. Andrew and Dr. John is, what were the most important takeaways for you from this report? To all of you, but you can start, Dr. Haddad.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to say it's so good to see this report come out every year. And I think every year it gets better and better and stronger and stronger. And accountability is really key for all of us, that we all need to be doing our part to make sure food systems are transformed in Africa as well as everywhere else. You know, I'm an agricultural economist. I was trained as an agricultural economist, and I was taught you increase productivity in the on-farm space. That generates income for farmers, that generates demand for non-farm rural products, and in turn that generates more demand for food as the rural non-farm producers, as their incomes increase. And so you get a virtuous spiral. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because one of the big messages, I think, of the report is that agricultural transformation is not the same as food system transformation. And this was really brought home to me about 4 years ago. I was working in an African country, and the Minister of Agriculture came up to me and he said, what's the difference between ag transformation and food system transformation? And I couldn't give him an easy answer, actually. So I had to go away and think about it and actually write a very short 2-page piece about what was different. And I think this is what the report is really trying to communicate this year. That the big difference is, while improving productivity in the ag sector is absolutely necessary, it's far from sufficient. Food systems give you two things. They give you an opportunity to improve multiple outcomes, so not just income generation, hunger reduction, nutrition improvement, but also climate adaptation, reduction in climate emissions even, resilience, jobs. The second thing it gives you is a whole range of levers, if you're a policymaker, to pull beyond the farm gate. So think of a food system as all the decisions that are made about what to grow, where to grow it, how to process it, how to transport it, how to store it, how to prepare it, how to buy it, etc., etc. So all of these food systems gives you multiple opportunities to affect multiple outcomes, and it gives you multiple levers to pull on the farm and beyond the farm gate. This, to me, was a big message of the report.
Thank you. Nancy?
Thank you very much. The reason why I let Dr. Lawrence go first is because the report was narrated in French. And I'm an English speaker, but all in all, I have something to comment, although I'm looking forward to read the report further. But I love the fact that because I come from a background of science, I'm a marine scientist by profession, but also I'm a founder of agri-food enterprise in the ocean economy sector. And when I look even how I founded my company, it was from science evidence data. And I think what we need in terms of creating solutions, be it in the agriculture side and with the food systems, we need to be informed by data. So I was very much impressed to see that a report is being launched, which means that it's also giving us young entrepreneurs to see the direction and the strategy, and we can be informed by the report, the strategic interventions to take.
Yeah. Honorable Minister Mamba, sorry. Yes, Permanent Secretary. What is the key highlight of the report?
Basically, from our side as Malawi, from the report, what we are getting is the simple message that you should measure something if you are to monitor it. If you are to register progress, you need to have measurable things that you are doing over time. Indeed, the African continent has set up the CADEC as the framework, but without taking measurements, without monitoring, then certainly we'll be blinking in the dark. So that's the main message. I think in terms of the details of the challenges that we are facing as an African continent, we are very sure and we know about these. We know about the climate change issues, we know about pests and diseases, we know about low productivities, poor transportation and all those. But basically we need coordination, we need more collaboration, we need partnerships. I think this is what I can get from the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Haddad, thinking about your experience with food systems reports, like the FCSI, where are governments making progress and where are the blind spots?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for asking me that. I was really taken by Dr. Mayaki's speech. I really liked his emphasis on acceleration because we not just Africa, but the whole world is moving too slowly when it comes to food system transformation. So I've been thinking a lot, and we at GAIN have been thinking a lot with all of our partners about how to accelerate transformation. And a part of it is to speed up the financing process. So we need to engage much more with DFIs and IFIs and public development banks, because their instruments are not terribly well suited for the food and ag sector, because the food and ag sector tends to be a bit more fragmented than the energy sector or the transport sector, for example. But another big part of it is food systems offer lots of potential, but they're quite complex, and so they need to be broken down and simplified. And so I really like the report because it's not embarrassed to say that data matter. Now, I understand that change is not a technocratic process. It involves social change, it involves political change, it involves a whole range of things. But if you don't have the right tools to sort of break food systems down, you are going to be floundering around in the dark. So you mentioned FSCI, which is the countdown set of indicators. It's a set of indicators that are 50 indicators that cover hunger and nutrition, climate, environment, jobs, resilience, and governance, which Dr. Mayaki said was very important, and I very much agree. So I was very pleased to see that John and the team have used the FSCI to assess progress at an Africa level on where are the greens, where are the oranges, and where are the reds. But there are other tools that need to be used. For example, tools to assess policy coherence. We've been recently working in 6 or 7 African countries with the governments to say, if your priorities are A, B, and C, what are your policies in ag and health? Okay, but what about trade? What about transport? What about environment and climate? where are the disconnects? And we're finding a lot of the disconnects in the trade column, actually. And I think trade is obviously very important to stimulate economic growth and generate jobs. But if it comes at the cost of environment or health or nutrition, policymakers at least need to know that so they can decide if that's okay or not. And finally, I think the other really essential piece of information that is needed, and I hope this will be showcased in the report in future years, is what's happening on budgets. One of the, I think it was Joe Biden, President Biden said, "Don't tell me what your priorities are, show me your budgets." If I can see what your budgets are, I'll know what you think is important and what you're not. And so IFAD and the World Bank and others, and GAIN is involved in this, are implementing something called 3FS, which is looking at, it's constructing food system budgets. It's saying how much is government X spending on food systems, and then what is it spending on in that space. And so that also gives policymakers a sense of, are we over-investing in this or under-investing in this? And they've also done it for external partners, so governments can hold external partners to account.
Thank you for that. Nancy, if you had the opportunity to sit down with your National Minister of Agriculture or Finance, because we're talking about budget, Dr. Haddad just mentioned it, what would be one policy or investment you'd ask for?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maimuna. That will be, first of all, a great opportunity. And I think I would choose to sit with both, because I feel like to elevate the agri-food sector, then we need both ministries to go hand in hand. But before I ask for any change, and if I can take an example from the country where I'm coming from, which is Tanzania, I will first acknowledge the existing initiatives that have already been taken in place, and I can give two examples. Like for instance, the government of Tanzania in 2022, it launched a pilot program, which is known as Build Better Tomorrow, for young people in agriculture to access land, to access finance, and also skills for modern agriculture. But also young people in Tanzania, through the Tanzania local government, there is a mandate law that prioritizes the women, young people, and people with disability to access zero-interest loans where they can be able to scale up their businesses. But however, despite of these initiatives, there have been challenges, which I think also it brings about a stepping stone where we can get lessons learned and supporting agri-food businesses is one thing, but the main aim should be to build sustainable businesses that are scalable, that we can be able to compete at national and international markets. So one of the challenges which we have seen is that different young people, we are at different stages. Like for instance, when it comes to young people who are involved in the agri-food enterprises, there are those who are nurtured from birth, like it is at a family tradition. There are those like myself who were scientists, and then through research we have seen that, wow, there is an opportunity in agriculture, let me enter. There are those who have come to conference like this, and they have seen that my friend has won a $50,000 from the go-getter stage, and sees that there is money. If I develop such an idea, I can be able to win such grants. So there are different minds. So what I would suggest, I think increasing finance for young people is one thing, but I think we should be able to think in 360-degree support, and that is backing up with technical support. But the technical support, it should be hand in hand with evaluating, monitoring and evaluation, because we are at different levels, stages of businesses. So the support should be targeted, but also what has been said here about issues of collaboration and holistic approach, like the government to think beyond, not working in silos, how to increase, how to bring in the private sectors and also other players in order to be able to create competitive agri-food businesses where we can truly compete in a world stage.
Thank you for that, Nancy. Mr. Mamba, from Malawi's perspective, what does commitment look like
in practice, and how do we scale it across the continent? Yep.
Yeah,
Your mic is, yeah.
To start with, like I said, that we have this continental framework. And this continental framework has to be downscaled. Downscaled in such a sense that we should have the investment plans. We should also have applicable policies. The good part of us is that in terms of the policies, we do very well. I think what is lacking, and which has also been acknowledged in this meeting, is that we are not implementing effectively. So that's where the challenge is. Now, the way I think about it, you know, the government of Ethiopia very recently has constructed a dam. And this dam is called the Renaissance Dam. And we are told that the finances that have led to the construction of this dam have come mainly from the locals. Now, in an era where people are saying American first, certainly we should say Africa first. Certainly we should say Malawi first. So in terms of implementation, I think it's high time that we improved our governance systems. Governance systems in terms of farm organizations, governance systems in terms of how we manage our resources. So I was of the view that if I were to advise anybody, particularly the Minister of Finance, is to increase the contribution of farmers, particularly when they have sold their produce, the cooperatives. Our cooperatives need to be effective. Our cooperatives need to realize that the infrastructure which is constructed using public financing. And therefore, as President Kagame said it, the more you demand about something, certainly you also have to contribute. So I believe it's high time that our farmers were capacitated so that they can be contributing to the coffers of the nation. And therefore, we can have resources to construct infrastructure that we need. For your information, I think this is the experience that I have as Principal Secretary. Our partners these days, they seem to be dragging, particularly on infrastructure development. They can finance you on capacity development, but when you talk about construction of roads, dams, whatever, will empower farmers. There's too much dragging. So the area we realize this, the better. So basically, this is my point of view, and the view which I also share with many other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Haddad, what's the most surprising trend you've seen in your global data sets? And are there any countries that have cracked the code, and what can we copy from those countries?
It's difficult to single out a particular country. I'm always, so let me politely dodge your question and answer a different question. I'm really surprised that small and medium enterprises, and I include smallholder farmers in that group, are not, this is an English word coming from the French, I think, valorized. They're not valorized enough. They're not celebrated enough. We do celebrate them at this event, but as one of the previous Africa Food System Forum reports said, they're part of this hidden middle or forgotten middle. And we often say that the food systems are too fragmented for investors, but actually the investment to food systems is also very fragmented. What do I mean by that? I heard today about a couple of new $100 million blended finance impact investing funds, which you have at the bottom level you have the catalytic financing, which is essentially first lost financing. So it's a recognition that you're working in a more fragile context. Not every company is going to be able to repay their loan, and so you kind of write off 15-20% of it. And there are some funders who are happy to do that because that then enables the other 85 or 80 million in a $100 million fund to leverage capital from development banks or from the private sector. But we don't need $100 million impact investment funds. We need $10 billion, $100 billion funds. So we need to find a way, really, of aggregating some of these funds into bigger funds and reducing some of the transaction costs. So I'm always surprised that the data we still see about SMEs, and you said this, SMEs finding finance as the constraining, as the biggest constraint. It's not just finance, it's technical assistance, it's technology as well, it's business development as well. But I leave you with this thought. GAIN has 12 country offices around the world. And I spend quite a great deal of my time as the ED going to visit them. And I love talking to the government officials, to researchers. I come from a research background myself. I love talking to civil society groups, development partners. But it's the businesses, it's the people who run the businesses that inspire me the most. They leave me optimistic and hopeful because they put, unlike any of the other people I talk to, and unlike myself, they put everything they have on the line for their business. Their family's well-being, their homes, their reputations, everything is on the line. And I just feel that we need to be backing them more. They have so much energy and so much untapped potential. And they are going to be shaping the food systems of Africa in the future. It's not the big companies from Europe and America that are going to be doing that. It's the African companies, and we need to back them.
Thank you, Dr. Haddad. I'm being told that we need to wrap up, but before we do, in 2 seconds, Nancy, youth are often called the future. How do you make them the present?
Honestly, I feel like we are already the present. I think also if we want to experience the magic, if we go at the Youth Dome, you will see yesterday youth were pitching ideas, and I think we are already taking over. So definitely for me, we are the present.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Mamba, in 2 seconds, if you had $1 extra per citizen in Malawi, where would you invest it in?
Water management.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a great chat, great insights. It was really interesting. I wish we had more time because this panel proves that with data, commitment, and youth energy, transformation isn't just possible, it's already underway. And Nancy, I love the fact that you said that, we're not the future, we are the present, we are actually here. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Haddad. Thank you, Mr. Mamba. Also a moment we've been waiting for. This morning it was the Town Hall Presidential Youth Forum, and for this afternoon I think we've been waiting for this moment. And I would like to call on stage Mrs. Alice Rugweza, President of AGRA, Andrew Cox, s'il vous plaît, Dr. John, je vous demande de revenir aussi, et Bintandoy de AGRA. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. And the 5 authors of the report, because this is the official launch of the report. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. Les 5 auteurs du rapport. Applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur Sa, sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît. Thank you so much to the authors, to Andrew, ladies and gentlemen, for being here for the launch. It is an honor and pleasure to launch this Africa Food Systems report at this decisive moment for our continent. The report helps build on a decade of AGRA's Africa Agriculture Status Reports, which helped move Africa's development conservation from agriculture as a single sector to food systems as the foundation for health, trade, jobs, and climate resilience. As you have heard, this report offers a simple and robust baseline framework anchored in the Food Systems Countdown Initiative to track progress towards sustainable food systems by 2030. I look forward to seeing how this report changes, hopefully for the better, over the coming years. Let me share what stood out for me. The report makes clear that piecemeal interventions are no longer enough, that Africa needs systemic transformation. Agriculture must not be treated as an isolated sector, but as a backbone of integrated food systems, linking production, trade, nutrition, finance, technology, and sustainability. This means reforming governance, catalyzing finance, strengthening regional platforms, and investing in infrastructure and knowledge and building inclusive markets. The critical role of youth is vital to emphasize, and I want to challenge the youth to seize this opportunity of modern agribusiness, technology, and green innovation. And as the President Kagame said today, both presidents actually, that you really must seize the moment and take responsibility. So really in closing, Africa has the vision, it has the resources, it has the talent to feed itself and feed the world. And with bold leadership and united action, we can be a model for the globe. This report is AGRA's contribution to you to help policymakers and investors build food systems that are resilient and inclusive. Thank you very much. Now let's hear what's working and what's next, how are coordinating platforms helping young innovators move from ideas to impact. And I would like to call Monsieur Ahmad Patesen, Managing Director of Africa Food System Forum. Monsieur Sen, sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. Je ne vais pas être très long parce que chaque année, sorry, I think the majority speaks English. My brain switch in French again. So I won't be very long. I think we have six points which we assign ourselves to measure progress on when we talk about Africa Food System Forum. So this was assigned to us by all partners that support us and that are here, you know, from the foundation, from OCP. You have also the United Nations, FAO, IFAD, have AU. So all these ecosystems, so the list is very long. They assigned us also the responsibility as a forum to work with also the UN Food System Forum, UN Food System Hub,
and see what's the progress is on the continent. What we are trying to do is to create a platform where every year we come on 6 key pillars and look at what we have done at the continental level in terms of progress. Number 1 is the agenda of the continent. So when we talk about the agenda of the continent, it's of course the overall, the umbrella. And this year, as concrete progress and result, when from an Africa Food System Forum perspective, there was a new agenda, the CADAP, validated and endorsed in Kampala. So just to mention that one, and obviously a lot of work to do with all partners now to set the indicators, but also the mean of implementation and the way to domesticate the CADAP at the regional level, but also at the country level. So I think it's a great achievement, and we should also clap for the continent and all institutions that have worked on it. All leaders mention it here, but it's just a document that needs to be implemented. And to be implemented now, we need resources. Number 2 is most of these policies and reforms we need on the continent to make sure that sector plan, national plan are being also implemented on the ground. There are a number of countries since the last AFSF that have worked. Is a number between 14 to 15 that have been working on food system type of policies. So there are 54, but there is a good progress in a certain number of countries where when you read their document, sector plans, so you can see that it is close exactly to what we call food system, which is also a great achievement. At the end of the day, so it's a document, but again, the implementation, the different reforms to make the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement a reality is also there. Number 3 is investment. So investment and finance. So what we can do also from a continent, and we also from an AFS perspective, from numbers, I'm just giving like rough numbers and not necessarily going through the details. Last year, many investors came, many partners, many countries. We had young people getting into this room and tracking. They are still here. They get into those different rooms and commitment. Quite a number of commitment for MSMEs. It was around $70 million. But many deal rooms that were presented close to $10 billion. So some countries, they were close to like $100 million. And the others, it was quite a challenge also to track because these are like ongoing investment. So I think the lesson learned is also it's not very easy as a platform every year when you have these meetings to be able to track investment going to those different countries. So we still try to find a model where we will be able to, whenever the forum ends, you are able to track and get those information through development partners, but also the hub or the different investment we are having into the different countries. So the other challenge is also like, the money that is put on the table from the government on top of what is happening from the international. 4 is knowledge and sharing. So we meet because we share knowledge. A lot of institutions are here. They produce reports. These reports are being used as policy, as document to guide all those different countries. Last year, I think we have selected around 8 of those policy documents. Most of them were tracked on the way people download them, but also on the way it guides policies. So it was probably like between 70 to like something like 80% satisfactory in terms of use. So it's the number of way these kind of papers we produce, like this report. At the end, sometimes we just believe it's just a document, but it feeds also national policies, sector policies, and they are used. They are used in a very, not optimum, but people use it from academia, but they use it also to guide policy at national level. 5, before ending on the 6, it's partnership. Partnership because we meet, there are a lot of B2Bs, a lot of discussion, bilaterals, and also some multilateral. And we can also, just to be honest, tracking those partnerships. Some of them are quite easy, but like the young person, one of them we met, and say, oh, I came last year in the AFS in Rwanda, and by the way, I got a deal, and my finance, someone provide me also a grant of $20,000 US. So I got the feedback, but the mechanism to get those kind of feedback will show us also how we are tracking, but also how these meetings provide opportunities for young people to move. There was one lady here on the stage, Sini from Lionceau. She was in Tanzania. She was awarded by the Wire of Agra. So myself personally, I visited her factory in town. So it has, multiplied, and right now she's even exporting. So that visibility is also a result because some people trust and provide now more investment. So it's also the value of being here and trying to work and getting also new investment. I can mention many. I'm pretty much sure the private sector and also OCP and the others can provide us also, from this meeting, the way they are expanding on the continent. So lastly, it's leadership. So I think this forum, from when it was created up to now, numbers is from 200 people to now more than 6,000. Here we were almost closing. So a big crowd, more than what we thought. So, and it's close to what the UN desertification is bringing, which is around 6,000 to 7,000. And if we continue this way, it will continue to increase, which means the ecosystem, everybody wants to lead, and it's good to have all these young people leading and being here and discussing with leaders. So I think it's a unique platform. I always tend to say we were looking at the equivalent in the Asian countries, Latin America, but none. So we must be also proud of putting this kind of platform from a continental perspective where all leaders, depending on where you are on the food system, you can come and express yourself, but also provide the direction on feeding the continent and creating jobs and opportunity for young people and for the continent. So I will end there. That was my summary for the year in review. From our perspective, we are still fine-tuning our tools to measure impact and how you measure impact when you are a forum or an annual summit like this. Not easy, but we'll get there. And every year we have listen, learn, and we'll make sure that numbers get more accurate, but also a system of getting feedback from our partners. This year, I must assume we even go back to some of our partners. They were not able to provide us the numbers. It's probably also because the instrument and the tool, the way it was set up, was not necessarily optimum. So we learn from those lessons, and we have improved our mechanism of collecting data when we have this kind of summit. And you may have those young people in green with those iPad, may be asking you some question. We are making it more simple. So every year we'll improve to get accurate information and a global picture. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Ahmad Patterson. And now we'll hear from Dr. Khaled El Tawil, Senior Program Coordinator at UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. Sous vos applaudissements, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you so much. Let me start first by thanking Patty for the growing partnership between the Food Systems Hub and the Africa Food System Forum. Last year, we had the opportunity to present our plans for the next year, what we are planning for the food system stock-taking moment, and I'm glad to be here today to report on behalf of the Hub on the outcomes of the Food System Summit that was held just 1 month ago. Excellencies, exactly 1 month ago, Ethiopia co-hosted with Italy the second Food System Stock-Taking Moment. The summit, which came 4 years after the Food System Summit in 2021, and just 5 years before the deadline for the Sustainable Development Goals, concluded with a call to action from the Secretary General, urging government, businesses, civil society, and international partners to accelerate efforts to transform food systems to achieve the 2030 agenda. Africa and the African leaders, the African civil society, the African private sector were at the central stage of the summit, presenting compelling evidence of food system transformation, success stories, as well as challenges that they face at the national and the regional level. In my statement, I would like to focus on three main reasons for optimism, three main challenges, and three main paradigm shifts that are emerging in our interactions with African countries and African national conveners. First, on achievement and reasons for optimism. We have seen this morning with the President of Senegal, the President of Rwanda, Africa is showing political leadership and commitment. Africa is driving food system transformation through continental commitments, building on regional anchors such as EU CAADP, the Kampala Declaration, the African Common Position on Food System Transformation, and the Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy. Africa is embracing its own plan, which is in line with international commitment, but also owned nationally and regionally in response to real needs and the challenges in the continent. The accountability mechanisms in the CAADP biennial review are unique and the evidence of seriousness and commitment. This exemplary leadership must be celebrated and praised globally and should inspire other regions worldwide. As executed by national conveners, 44 African countries have established national pathways, the majority of which already integrated into strategies, budgets, and investment plans. These efforts go beyond food security to embrace nutrition, school meals, and social protection, linking local producers to nutrition initiatives for a triple win in better child health, strong local markets, and job creation. In the Food Systems Hub, we continue to support this regional approach through linkage and alignment between food system pathways and the CAADP agri-food system goals and deliverables. Second reason for optimism, regional trade. We have listened to Dr. Mayaki speaking about fragmentation, but Africa through regional trade and integration is advancing. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a game changer for food security, job creation, and food sovereignty. Building on the economies of scale in Africa and strengthening regional trade corridors, reducing barriers, and investing in agro-industrial parks, we can boost inter-African trade and build continental self-sufficiency with positive impact on food security, job creation, and livelihood. Third reason for optimism. Youth, women, and the small and medium enterprises are becoming change drivers. Across the continents, we are witnessing growing attention to strengthening multi-stakeholder collaboration, leveraging resources and capacities toward enhanced and accelerated implementation. We are watching system transformation, prioritizing small-scale farmers, women entrepreneurs, and young innovation. Youth are also putting what we can call constructive pressure on government to accelerate action, a positive sign of accountability and hope for the future. Excellencies and esteemed participants, several fundamental and emerging challenges continue to limit this optimism. I would like to highlight three of them. One, as evidence in the SOFI report, conflict and the climate change continue to be a major disruptor for food system transformation. Conflict displaces communities and destroys markets. Africa, which is only responsible for between 2 to 3% of CO2 emissions, suffers the most from the impact of climate change, as manifested in rising temperature, droughts, floods, soil degradation, and biodiversity loss. This shock disproportionately affects smallholder farmers, undermining both food security and stability. According to the last SOFI report, over 20% of the population faced hunger in 2024. This is more than double the world average. 307 million people are suffering from hunger. Prevalence of stunting among those who are under 5 years of age is alarming and severe in some areas, exceeding 30%. The cost of healthy diet in Africa is one of the most all over the world, which is, if we compare it with the level of income, can indicate the impact on food security and nutrition. Second challenge, financing gaps and debt burdens remain stark in Africa. While we see innovations such as debt swaps for school meals, microfinance, and blended finance, African nations face increasing shrinking donor support and barriers to concessional finance. Unlocking resources require domestic mobilization, de-risking private sector engagement, and better tracking of food system financing, which could be supported by tools such as the 3FS tool. I think Lawrence speak about this, championed by IFAD and the World Bank. Third challenge, insufficient policy coherence and local institutional capacities limitations. Data systems are inadequate. We have to face this unhappy reality. Coordination is sometimes, and is in many cases, fragmented, and the accountability mechanisms remain weak, leading to duplication and inefficiencies. As we move forward, three priorities are emerging from what we have seen in the summit and in the Africa regional meeting held in May this year. One, deepening and embracing the food systems approach. Food systems mean different things to different ministries and different stakeholders. For agriculture, it means increasing productivity. For health, it's better nutrition. For environment, it might mean decreasing emissions and water management, biodiversity preservation. For social affairs or economy, it is decent livelihood. We must embed system thinking across government and institutions and ensure farmers, who are the frontline actors, understand and drive on this transformation. Through the Hub Food System Conversion Initiative, which is also supported by FAO and implemented already in Ethiopia, Cameroon, Kenya, Egypt, and Madagascar, and underway in Somalia, Zambia, Central African Republic, Nigeria, and Mauritania, we help bring a systemic approach ensuring coherence between food system, climate action, and nutrition at the national level. Second, harness at scale science, data, and innovation. As mentioned in the presentation, Africa still has one of the lowest agricultural productivity per capita. But this also means that the highest margin for improvement by investing in artificial intelligence, applied research, foresight, digital platforms, and building on the Hub Science Policy Society Nexus, we can accelerate evidence-based policies and adaptive governance, increasing productivity and decreasing the pressure on the environment. Third, mobilize resources and scale up investment, including regional markets and trade opportunities in the African continental free trade area. Governments must take the primary responsibility in financing their food system transformation with meaningful domestic spending and as well as international effort to unlock investment from the private sector and external partners. Catalytic instruments such as the Joint SDG Fund show what is possible when financing aligns with national vision, with initial investment leveraging additional finance and investment with a ratio of up to 1 to 9, and the great success stories from Cameroon, Kenya, and many other African countries. In conclusion, Africa stands at a critical juncture. We have a high momentum after the Food System Summit. We have a high vision. We have commitment, but conflict, climate shocks, debt burdens, and weak system continue to undermine food system resilience. The choice is clear: either continue with fragmented efforts or accelerate with coordinated, systemic, and bold actions. At a time when multilateralism is challenged, African countries must inspire others and regions worldwide by sharing their stories at the UN General Assembly coming this month and other major global events such as the World Social Summit and the COP30 in Brazil. Through collaboration with the African Union Commission and the EUD-NIBAD, the UN Hub commit to remain responsive and useful in the continent, derived to realize impactful success on the CAADP-Kampala commitment. It is an imperative for Africa. I would like also, on behalf of the Hub, to acknowledge the support that the Hub is receiving from FAO, Maximo is here, and also Assistant Director General Abebe, and from the UN system, which help us deliver on all of this commitment. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Khaled. Thank you. And we're going on to the next panel, which is infrastructure and innovation. And innovation without infrastructure is like seeds without soil. So we'll explore what youth truly need to thrive. And I would like to call Mr. Shan Shi, Mayor of Sanya, People's Republic of China, please to join me on stage. Dr. Canisius Kanengare, Executive Director of African Agriculture Technology Foundation. Mrs. Zoe Carl Waitaka, Managing Director and Partner, BCG Consulting. and Professor Apollinaire G. Kang. Alors, Zoé, je vais démarrer avec vous. Et ma question serait de savoir what type of infrastructure do youth truly need first to thrive in agribusiness?
Thank you. And it's a big question. But when we think about what type of infrastructure is needed for youth to truly thrive, it's important to go beyond physical assets, which I think would be one of the first areas we would think of, and to think about systems infrastructure that lowers barriers to entry and then de-risks youth participation. And so while things like irrigation, storage, roads, energy, these are all foundational, you need to think about how to pair these with, as I say, systems infrastructure. And a couple of examples I'll touch on are digital, financial, I think both of which we've heard a lot about today, and also institutional. So on the digital side, digital platforms are enabling young people to access thousands of customers, to start businesses with only their smartphones, to access price transparency, e-extension, all types of services. And so if you are able to unlock more of this, you can kind of lower the friction and give them access to efficiency. And we believe deeply in this at BCG, and so we have launched a second deal accelerator for young women in digital, who are leading businesses across sectors, including agri-services. And so if there's any entrepreneurs here who are looking for access to finance and ways to scale their impact, please check our website. But again, I think digital is one of the key things that is also responsive to agriculture. I know agriculture is complex, but we need to create structures that are responsive to young people in agriculture. And we need to have frameworks that bring them into value chains. And there are young people who are innovating around this, but if we look at our continent that is majority youth with a median age of 19 years old, this actually represents a huge market for banks, and yet that market isn't being addressed sufficiently. And so obviously it's ripe for innovation. And so the last one then is the institutional infrastructure. And I think a few people have said that we need to have clear rules of the game in order to operate. And that's the same for young people as it is for any actors and for businesses in particular. And that is the role of our governments. And so I think the government has a really important role to play in terms of lowering barriers to entry, creating incentives to encourage youth participation. And I'm sorry that our co-panelist from the People's Republic of China wasn't here, but they have some great examples around the rural revitalization program, China Youth in Business, and I think Dr. Mayaki earlier mentioned just in general many initiatives that they've done to scale as an economy. So, in summary, when we talk about what infrastructure is needed, of course physical is needed, but I think the systems infrastructure is a critical starting place.
Thank you, Zoe. Dr. Canisius, how can African innovators and African innovation advance food systems in Africa?
Okay, thank you. I think there are many ways. First of all, we need to look at the key challenges we have in the agri-food system in Africa. There are problems of productivity, problems of resilience, problems of post-harvest management, problems of value addition, problems of market, access to the market. And each of those levels has its own hurdles and need some sort of innovation to be addressed and then to be looked into as a system. I would say on the first one, we have gotten some innovation in science and technologies which have been brought to the farmers and which allowed first to resist climate change, to resist also some insect and pests, and to get higher productivity. And that, of course, because it gives more more product on hectare, it has improved the productivity. Now, the second level is that we needed to look for innovations to enable those farmers not to lose their produces to the post-harvest management issues. And here came one of the innovations was to also reduce the hard work we applied it to the cassava value chain, where women and children were spending days, and many of them peeling the cassava before it was processed. So our innovation was to bring in a plant which could take the cassava roots from the field, clean them, peel them, dry them, and produce high quality flour for human consumption and the rest for animal feed. I think that changed not only the way those ladies and girls were occupied, but also it brought more money because in that value chain, we brought in also the bakery industry, those who are making cookies, to get into the market and produce. The other is now the digital, as my colleague said. Digital technology has improved a lot on bringing knowledge and bringing slowly what we can call precision agriculture through some very good software that we developed with our partners. Link the service to the providers, for example, mechanization. And it helps a lot during COVID to link still the farmers to our mechanization hub. And the last one, I think, when you look at the youth and other people in Africa who are involved in finance-related digital technologies, then you find that indeed these technologies can transform the agricultural sector, the microfinancing of those sectors, and other areas. What I could say is that policymakers, investors, and political powers, I mean here our political leaders, need to support Africans in general to be equipped with the needed infrastructure so that they can produce more of those technologies locally. Because once a technology is locally produced or customized, then it becomes easy to deploy it to the smallholder farmers in Africa, because it has a face of somebody they know, somebody they can identify themselves to. I'm saying this for the BT cowpea that we deployed in Nigeria, for the telemedicine that we deployed also in Nigeria and South Africa, and also soon in Ethiopia, etc. It matters to have an Ethiopian talking to Ethiopian farmers, to have a Nigerian talking to Nigerian farmers, etc., etc. But we will not be able if Africa does not invest in research.
Thank you for that. Professor Jikand, how do we industrialize livestock research to create jobs, value chains, and opportunities for young people?
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about the livestock sector. Before I get there, I want to acknowledge what Zoe and Canisius have mentioned. When it comes to infrastructure, what Zoe said is exactly that. Physical infrastructure, but also digital infrastructure, the part that we don't see. And I think that's where the opportunity is. So the livestock sector, we have to really make it part of agriculture. It's 40% of our GDP. Sometimes some of the decisions that are made for investment in driving infrastructure are not commensurate. They do not account for that. And I think that's really important. Also understanding what are the wins of a sustainable livestock sector could also help us decide on what type of infrastructure has to be put in place. One is nutrition. If we want to drive the livestock sector to improve nutrition, what should we put in place? If you're in the Sahel, for instance, how can we keep milk to be safe when people consume? I think that should be a key driver for the infrastructure development. The second one is really about climate and the environment. We talk about the environment, sustainable environment. How can we turn the livestock sector into a driver, really bringing solutions to address the climate situation that we have, particularly where we have unsustainability in the use of some of our natural resources. And finally, livestock sector is really a good penetration in terms of driving the youth, women, and people who are vulnerable. So I think these are the triple wins that I want to talk about. If you really want to deliver impact using these drivers, what's the type of infrastructure that you have to put in place? As I mentioned, physical infrastructure, I'm not going to talk about that. You can spend the whole day talking about it, but really the opportunity around how we can connect. In our sector, we do have innovations. We have things that are working, but there's still pockets of successes. How can we use digital infrastructure and other infrastructure to ensure that we can go from innovation to large-scale use and also scaling? I think that's really one thing that we have to put in place. How can we connect the producers to market, to aggregators, to deliver safe food and all that? Let me spend a little bit of time talking about the e-infrastructure, which is really where we have the opportunity to transform the sector. I would say that in the background of we have research infrastructure, we have things, the roads can be built, markets can be built in various places, but sometimes the connector is really not around the missing physical infrastructure. So digital platforms, our friend from FAO talked about digital infrastructure linked to AI, artificial insemination. And I would argue that in any country, in any region, we have a lot of data that has been collected. How can we turn that into the decision support? I think that's really where the digital infrastructure, digital platform can help us. We also have the virtual research space. We're talking about the youth. If you're to create that, youth in East Africa can connect to those in West Africa and vice versa, and really co-create solutions from that space. I think that's where we have to really try to push. And data repositories. And I think this is where we need the policies. When data sit in the country, who owns it? If you exchange with another person in a different country, what's the intellectual property arrangement, the data ownership and things like that? This is where we are looking at the policy makers to ensure that we can transact through the data with a lot of trust, but also protecting the ownership and the utilization of that data. The food system report that has been launched here is based on data. And we're able to see that there's 4% increase over the years because we are measuring. We are looking at things 3 decades backwards. And I think that's really the power of the data that we have. Specific applications and opportunities. In the CGIR, we're about 60 or 65 and 50 years old of data collection. We have something called the CG space. Any information, any data, any publication, any report that has been generated from the CGIR exists in the CG space. And we're building the AI, LLM models to ensure that we can pass that data. The utilization of that data is going to attract people who are younger than us to access the data and turn that into something. But it's also going to help us avoid repeating mistakes of the past because we have access to that data. For us at the International Livestock Research Institute, our work is really built on ensuring that we can use digital information to address challenges linked to animal health, challenges linked to genetics, challenges linked to nutrition and the environment, but also investment. We have established the Livestock and Climate Solution Hub, and also the Livestock and Investment Hub. What is the data that we can put on the table of a policymaker, the Ministry of Finance, to make decision of the data, of the information, and make decision of the investment to be made to go into the sector. And finally, the policies that we want to develop should also be based on the data. What is the data telling us? It's not a political thing. It can be a political thing, but really, if you want the policies to work for us, we really have to drive it from the data standpoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Zoe, I want to ask you again, and I think it's going to be 2 questions before they ask me to wrap up. It's beyond physical infrastructure. What digital infrastructures investment could be game changers for youth in food systems, and how do we ensure that these investments are inclusive, particularly for young women entrepreneurs?
So the question is beyond
Beyond
physical
the physical,
and digital?
exactly. Yep.
I think one of the areas that's been mentioned a few times that I think could be transformative is narratives and branding around our continent. So this is now, I'm introducing another type of infrastructure, systems infrastructure. We were listening earlier to a panelist talk about matcha and the marketing and branding of matcha, and we have moringa on the continent. Another panelist on that same panel mentioned that what's holding us back is our confidence as a continent and mindsets. And I think there are many examples of other countries that have completely transformed value chains, going from number 10, 11 exporters of avocados, for example, Peru, to the number 1 being very well known in the US, or number 2 being very well known in the US. And we have these amazing products, and they don't exist anywhere else in the world. And so I think, as Africans and as growers of these amazing products, we need to market them and brand them, and we need to add value to them, and we need to accrue that to the continent. I think there are a lot of young women who are specifically working in these African indigenous crops. I know there's lots of different names for them, but I think that is one area that could be particularly transformative, and where I wouldn't say, we have typical conversations in these forums about how to brand and market and lobby trade partners externally to better place our agri-products.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Canisius, how do we ensure that grassroots innovators, often in rural areas, are part of the scaling conversation?
Grassroots innovators. I think we need to create platforms where also we have those who are not in urban area, those who are not in research centers in universities, to be heard, to be considered for the ideas, for the activities that they are leading. It is very important, and that is why, and I'm very happy for what happened here during this edition of the forum, where the youth was highly represented. They don't, for sure, come all from the universities and the big research centers, so they can be heard. In the just concluded African Conference on Agricultural Technology, it was in June, we had also a youth segment where we allowed them to say what they do, and they were coming mostly from the rural area, talking of farming, talking of their innovation on drone, and etc. And you would be amazed about the rusticity of what they are using as input to have those equipment, and they are very effective. So I think we should leave no one behind, as one of the head of CES said, and we researchers, we should open wide the forum and do a proactive effort to look for those who are not immediately seen around us. I think research needs to be purposeful, not only in the terms of the subject of research, but more on the impact, not only in the easy to reach areas, but also in the hard to reach areas. And they matter even more because there are many out there in the rural area, and they are not short in imagination, they are not short in capacity, they are not short in the determination to change their situation. They need just a spark to get their potential put into action and produce actions.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, lady and gentlemen. Thank you for these great insights that remind us that innovation without infrastructure is just potential, but with the right investment, partnerships, and youth leadership, it becomes transformation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. We are almost done. I know that it's been a long day. We have 2 more short panels. I promise it's going to be very short before we wrap up the day. I would like to call Dr. Maximo Torero Kulan, Madame Binta Tourendoy, et Monsieur Sunru Yong, s'il vous plaît. All right, good afternoon. How are you? Good to have you up here. I'm going to start with Mrs. Binta Tourendoy. What advice do you have for young entrepreneurs seeking investment? And most of them are seeking investment. You just turned it off.
In the room, young entrepreneurs to listen to my advice. And before I start maybe answering your question, I think it is important to maybe remind us of hard facts. And these hard facts have been mentioned this morning by our 2 presidents, by the AGRA chairman, and many other interventions here. Hard facts is that 60% of Africa population is youth. Hard fact is as well that women represent more than 50% of the population. Hard fact is as well that we have more between 60 and 65% of arable land in Africa. Hard fact as well is that less than 20% of our GDP in Africa is agriculture. So it's really evident that it is important to work towards that. I will switch to French so that the whole audience can participate and listen as well. Donc, je ne vais pas rappeler les chiffres, mais il est important, bien sûr, que l'agriculture soit un moteur de développement dans nos pays africains. Et je pense également que AGRA, puisque je représente AGRA aujourd'hui, AGRA a compris cela depuis sa création. AGRA existe depuis moins de 20 ans. Nous allons bientôt célébrer nos 20 ans. Et l'initiative de Kofi Annan, et il est important, je pense, de le rappeler, c'est justement que l'agriculture et la chaîne de valeur agricole et le système alimentaire puissent être au centre du développement de nos pays africains. Moi, je pense qu'il est très important de le rappeler, parce que AGRA a pris de l'ampleur, mais il est quelquefois important de revenir aux sources pour comprendre pourquoi nous sommes là. Et je pense également qu'il est important de rappeler qu'AGRA, dès les premiers instants également, a investi dans la jeunesse. Nous avons 2 initiatives phares que la plupart d'entre vous, vous devez connaître certainement. C'est le Go-Getters et Value for Her. Donc ce sont 2 initiatives phares qui permettent aujourd'hui d'investir dans la jeunesse et surtout de reconnaître des idées innovantes pour aider, subventionner, faire en sorte que ces jeunes qui sont détectés aujourd'hui puissent avoir un tremplin, de la visibilité et puissent également communiquer sur leurs innovations. Donc, je tenais à rappeler ces faits, hard facts, comme je l'ai dit, avant de répondre maintenant à votre question. Donc, la question, je pense, la plupart du temps, on s'attend à ce que, et là je prends ma casquette, my other hat, which is a banker, pour répondre à la question. La plupart du temps, on accuse le système bancaire et surtout, les jeunes répondent que l'accès au financement, c'est vraiment le point principal. Moi, je dirais une chose, et justement avec ma casquette de banquier. Je dirais aux jeunes entrepreneurs, premier conseil, connaissez votre business sur le bout des doigts. C'est très important. Most of the time, young entrepreneurs, they think, I need capital. I want to buy this for my business plan. My business shows this. My business plan shows this. And when they are sitting in front of me, and I'm coaching young entrepreneurs as well, I ask just one simple question. What is the solution you want to have? What is the problem you want to solve? What is the problem you want to solve? And then they start like, So it's about problem solving when you start a business. What is the particular niche? What is the particular product that you're bringing on the market that is not existing, which will enable you to grow your own business? So this is a simple thing. So know your figures, know what you are talking about before coming to the bank and just asking for money. So I will start with that. Know your business. And I will say as well that it is important that young entrepreneurs, they build relationship with stakeholders, with people. It's not about only capital, financial capital. It's about network building. You know, this is not rocket science. What you have done, the steps you're going to take, some other people have taken that as well. So share your experience. Be humble. Talk to people. Build your network so that the steps that you're going through, you won't go into, problems, loopholes, and those type of things. So it is important to take time to build relationships. And maybe I'll end with, of course, capital. I will illustrate maybe this particular point. Yesterday and today, we have mentioned several times Le Lionceau because she's one star amongst many others. And we are particularly proud because 2 years back, we awarded Mrs. Sini Samba Le Lionceau for her company, being CEO of Le Lionceau. So yesterday, I went with some other colleagues and partners to visit the site. And we were challenging her. We were very proud of what she has done, obviously. And she said she needs money, capital, again, capital to a banker. I said, okay, fine. Why do you need capital? Okay, I need to buy machines. One machine just got here, assembly machine, and we need to put that working. Okay, that's good. And then what happens? We need some money as well because we need space. We need some space because the factory is growing, so we need to develop.
That is great as well. And then what about la matière première? Okay, you're putting mango products, you know, local products to make baby food. So you are going to grow rapidly, maybe by installing your production unit, etc. Are you sure that you have sufficient raw material and les fruits, les légumes, tout ce que vous mettez dans la production? Donc, ce que je veux dire par là, it is important, capital is important, but it is not important for one single thing. It is important when you see the whole value chain. And I think this has been repeated today, this afternoon as well. So you have to have the global picture. What is the solution you are trying to solve? The problem you are trying to solve, the solution you want to have, and then you see the global picture, the whole value chain, and then you ask for money. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Young, what financing models best de-risk youth-led startups, and how do we activate local investors to step in early? I know that Mrs. Doi is talking about, yes, you have to have a good business model and you have to be the solution to the problem, but yes, indeed, after that, at the end of the day, we still also need money. So how do we do that?
Sure. So I think if you're talking about models that will help catalyze more financing, maybe we can start there. There's a couple levels we can talk about it, right? So if we talk about it at the sort of microeconomic level of supply and demand, there are, I think, blended finance tools have shown that they can move more capital, they make it a little bit easier. So whether it's subordinate capital in a fund or first loss capital, that's part of a financial institution, that can help make it easier for investors or lenders to put their capital to work. We would say from the work that Dahlberg has done that it's best done, especially when you're thinking about a bank or a non-business or a non-banking financial institution, to not provide these guarantees or this FLC on a deal-by-deal basis, but rather a pool. So you're incentivizing them to create a portfolio of investments or loans to youth-led agriculture businesses. The second thing that we've seen have effect is supporting on the pipeline development or the origination of the deals, because it's expensive. It's hard to put, you have capital that you need to put to work. Doing it in small tickets is hard, and that's often the size at which Binta probably knows as a banker with her other hat, that's expensive to do. And so when you can provide some kind of kicker or origination incentive for investing in or lending to something that's youth-led, we've seen that change behavior in funds and institutions. And then the third thing that I'll say in terms of helping on the supply side is, particularly with private capital, is to think about self-liquidating instruments. We've done work with various funds of funds who are investing in emerging markets. Those who are just using pure straight equity tend to have lower returns. If you're looking, because they'll make an investment, the business may be solid, they may never find an exit, right? And so then they're holding it forever, and so their returns are terrible. Whereas if you've got some kind of mezzanine structure or self-liquidating elements to it, then you might cap your upside, but you can actually get out, and we see the multiple on invested capital there actually higher. And so that's something that we think those working in private capital, whether it's impact investing, venture capital, private equity, should think about, and that applies to youth-led agricultural companies. Now, when it comes to, you were asking about how do we catalyze more money into youth-led agricultural businesses that are like innovations and so on. I would actually, it's the end of the day, can I say something a little bit spicy? I don't think we should be piling on too many requirements. Starting any kind of business in our markets is hard, right? And I've done this a few times. It's really hard. Starting a business in agriculture or food systems is also hard. Starting a business and growing it if you're young and you don't have the track record or the credit history, that's hard. So layering all these things and saying, please come in, and now you're asking financing to come in. I think we're making the degree of difficulty too high. And so I would say, some of the businesses we've heard about are not necessarily innovations, and that's okay. Like a solid business plan that solves a problem, like Binta was saying, that should be good enough. It doesn't need to be super sexy, super innovative. The most promising young agripreneur I know is just selling avocados, selling it to urban markets. Now he's cracking the European market. That's boring, but like boring is good, and there's a real business there. And so I think as we think about like moving capital in, let's not make this too difficult, because the game is already rigged. There's so many upstream things that need to be solved where we don't have working credit reference bureaus, collateral registries don't work, digital financial, the rules around digital financial services isn't clear. So like that's already hard enough. Let's not make it more difficult for ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Massimo, how can the investment room and the hand-in-hand initiative work well together?
Okay, no, thank you so much. So first, the idea here is to try to understand what we're trying to do, no? And clearly we're trying to solve problems, and that's the goal. We want to solve a problem, but also we want to prioritize the problem that we want to solve, because we don't have enough money to solve all the problems that we have, and we have a lot of problems today. So what Hand in Hand does is exactly that. Hand in Hand, what it does is look at the countries, look at the territories of the countries, use territorial approaches based on state-of-the-art geospatial information, and try to identify in areas where agriculture means not only seeds, but also livestock, forestry, agroforestry, etc., where agriculture can really move you out of poverty, where there is a realized enormous potential possible that could happen. And then looks at the problems. What are the bottlenecks in those locations? Then experts are sent to identify what are those constraints, and then investment plans are built around those constraints. Now, the solution to that problem or that constraint could be diverse, and that's where the innovation could come, and that's where the entrepreneurship could come. And those investment plans then are brought up to investors to try to bring financing to that, which is similar to what you're trying to do here with investment hubs or the investment desks. Now, why this is interesting? We started this more than 5 years ago now. We have raised more than 40 billion, depending on the year. But the goal here is that what we have learned in the process, because our goal was not only to attract traditional donors, also to attract new donors, foundations, but also to attract the private sector. And that's the complexity. The goal here was to learn how we can do that. Basically, what you want is to matchmake, no? You want to have the requirement, you know the suppliers, and you want to bring them together. But that brought up a huge learning experience to us in the sense that there is enormous asymmetries of information. So we are confident that we identify the proper problem. We are confident that our investment plans, which are done with our investment center, which works with all the banks, all the IFIs in the world. So the investment plans are well done, are certified in a certain way. But the private sector doesn't have that information. So we need to bring them closer together. And the first thing was, okay, we start to invite them to these forums. Initially, that didn't work well because the private companies wanted to sell their own business. Second is, we figured out immediately that what companies were looking is some enabling environment linked to what was said before. The enabling environment that the government has to provide is central, and that's something that they need to work in this investment plan. So our slide deck starts with the enabling environment of the government and what the government is trying to bring up to create this stability that the private sector needs. But then it becomes the topic of the de-risking. No? And our theory of change is that de-risking should be financial, of course, the first loss, but should also be de-risking in terms of information. What we have learned now is that de-risking in terms of information is helping enormously to attract the financial de-risking too. Because it's not just the company that wants to operate in a location in Senegal or in Uganda or in Latin America, but it's also the IFI, like the IFCs of the world, in the case of the World Bank, or the IDB Invest in case of Latin America, or the AFD, the African Development Bank, private sector arm, that they need to know what they could get as a return of that investment so that they can de-risk those private companies with whom they work. And that's starting to create this dynamic, which is super important now. So we now work together to create linkages with companies together with the other arm, which is the de-risking arm, and the third leg, which is the de-risking of information. And of course, the fourth leg, because we have 4 legs, is the government and the enabling environment of the government. That is what has started to accelerate the process of investment. And why? Because clearly there is no way we're going to achieve everything we have been talking today, and I assume we will be talking tomorrow, if we don't bring the private sector on board. But also if we don't properly coordinate the priorities of the investments with the IFIs. And that's what we are looking for. At the end, what we are aiming to is every country to have its own portfolio of investments that are prioritized so that the IFIs and the private sector are responding to their needs. And that's what CARAP is about. CARAP is about giving the priorities of the government so that we align the investment to those priorities. And that's where we are working to. But finally, I think one other topic which is important is we should not expect that every youth will be an entrepreneur. We don't want billions of small little enterprises that will die very soon. That's not the idea. You don't want a huge hazard rate. We should prioritize, and we should create the dynamics also for employment. Right now, just the gap in gender is about $1 trillion of flow that we are losing every year. We have the raw material, but we are not using it properly. The same with youth, $1.5 trillion that we are losing because we are not using that raw material in the best. So we need to create both entrepreneurship, of course, but also we need to create labor demand for that labor supply, which is huge in the case of Africa. And that's where we need to create these investment plans that are attractive and create employment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs. Binta, my last question to you would be, how can we better support young entrepreneurs to scale their innovations?
I would not say financing again.
Yes, we're not going to talk about financing.
More seriously, I think I will just pick up one thing, the enabling environment and the role of government. I think that is essential to any type of activities of business, especially when there is scarcity in finance, and especially when you want to scale up. I will take another example, which is not here in Senegal, but in Mali, where I'm from. The mango sector, okay? And you can say that they are organized, you can say that they have a leadership in terms of governance, etc. Production is there as well. However, in order for them to get access to the market, there needs to be some decision-making as well for the government. Access to market is not very difficult because the production of mango is something. Mali's mango, they are one of the best in the world. However, they need. Someone want to applaud? Mali's mangoes is one of the best. Okay, thank you for that. I'll be very quick. If the government makes an enabling environment for them, the scaling up of mango production would be, flawless. So I will really emphasize on that, the role of our government, government in creating an enabling environment. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of time. I had so many other questions that I wanted to ask, but one key thing is that I take away from your answers is that when bold ideas meet bold capital, youth can turn vision into transformation. But of course, like you said, they also have to find the solution to their problems first before asking for money. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also like to call Mr. Mendy Filali, Mrs. Wambui Chege, and Mrs. Namsa Daniels, please, so we can wrap up. system. What are the progress that we can see in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years from now in the food system in Africa? Who wants to go first?
I'll be glad to go first. And we've heard some numbers already that are indicators of trends within African food systems. I'm going to speak very briefly about agricultural productivity growth. At Virginia Tech, where I work, we publish the Global Agricultural Productivity Report, which is an annual report that tracks trends in agricultural productivity worldwide. Simply put, agricultural productivity is not the same as production. It's not the same thing as yield. It is a measure of efficiency, how efficiently we turn inputs and resources such as land, labor, capital, feed, livestock, machinery into outputs in agriculture, livestock, crops, and aquaculture. So we believe that increasing agricultural productivity is the single best pathway towards sustainable agriculture, not just in Africa, but all over the world. And so we advocate for that through our GAP report, which you can find at globalagriculturalproductivity.org. So specifically for sub-Saharan Africa, we've heard that agricultural output is growing at 4% per year. That's faster than population growth, which is about 2.5% per year. That's a positive. However, on the other side of the ledger, about 2/3 of that increased output is coming from converting lands to agriculture. Wild lands and pasture lands being converted to more intensive forms of agriculture. Every year in Africa, 1.7 million hectares of land are converted to agriculture. And we know that can increase output, but it also poses challenges for decreasing biodiversity, fragmenting wildlife habitats, exposing vulnerable soils to water and wind erosion, and so forth. And so, yes, output is increasing. However, it's not being done sustainably. And so that we believe at the GAP report that one of the primary needs in African agriculture, and indeed in agriculture in much of the world, is to increase how efficiently we turn inputs and resources into outputs.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Namsa?
Thank you. I think given that the theme of this conference is about putting youth at the center, we do need to measure progress within the next 5 years, 10 years, in terms of really how many youth are in the agricultural sector. So first would be from the point of view of employment. Is agriculture really absorbing large number of young people? We've said that many young people don't think there's a future in agriculture. They don't think they can make sufficient incomes in agriculture. They may not think agriculture is sexy enough. But all of that can be disproven. So from the point of view of Heifer International, one of the things that we are focusing on is employment and how many young people can be absorbed in the agricultural sector. We are currently working on a program right now that has a 5-year lifespan in Uganda. Its aim is to employ 250,000 young people in agriculture. To date, 42,000 have already been employed, 70,000 have been reached. So that's one very critical measure. The second one we've spoken about is the role of entrepreneurs, and in particular, young entrepreneurs. We should be able to look at ourselves in 5 years' time and say, how much capital have we put in the hands of these young people? How sustainable are the businesses that they've created? How many of them have translated those small businesses into unicorns? You know, we seem to think that we should only be playing small. So again, at Heifer International, one of our flagship programs is Ayute. Its focus is on agriculture, youth, and technology. And it is putting capital in the hands of young agripreneurs by providing incubation, by providing strategic partnerships. And again, to date, the results, I'm proud to say that we have funded 80 businesses to date to the tune of 11 million US dollars. So those are not small amounts. Our very last, our most recent Ayute competition, we awarded $1 million to a farmer, to a business that is reaching 500,000 farmers. So we can also measure the impact of these businesses. How many farmers are they reaching? How many jobs are they creating? So those are very specific, quantifiable measures that we can hold ourselves accountable to. And then lastly, partnerships, right? Because if we're transforming food systems in Africa, we're not going to do it, no organization is going to do it alone. So how can we strengthen the partnerships? How can we increase the number of partnerships? How can we work in coordination? We've heard that mentioned today. How can we be better coordinated since we all have the same end goal in really arriving at the kind of change we want to see in 5 years?
Thank you very much. Mr. Mehdi?
Thank you very much. I will speak much more about the component of fertilizer sector in the food system. As you know, it's a major component. We have seen post-COVID and in the context of the Russian-Ukrainian war, the disruption of the supply chain and the increase of fertilizer price and also of the crops. Fertilizer sector has been, and Africa has been organizing itself through the 10-year action plan that has been launched in May 2024 in Nairobi, and that is putting very important targets and KPI. And also the change and the shift that has been done from Abuja in 2006 to Nairobi in 2014 is that we are not speaking only about the amounts of nutrients that we use in agriculture and the amount of fertilizers, but we speak about soil health, and we speak about the access to extension services. So there is a comprehensive approach with KPIs that are, very important commitment. For example, reversing land degradation for 30% of the degraded lands. Also making the link with the crop productivity. And we speak during the Nairobi Declaration, there is this commitment to increase the crop and the cereal productivity from 1.4 ton per hectare to 3.5. So it means that we are working now in the sector in an ecosystem approach and with the aim to increase the productivity sustainably of the crops. As OCP, as you know, we are committed to support agriculture food systems, and we have several programs, important programs that we measure that are very structural, like the digital soil mapping that's enabled to do more than 54 million hectares of soil mapping, first to know the needs of our soils, then which enable us to produce the right fertilizers and to apply the right quantity, the right amount of fertilizer by applying what we call the 4R. And then there is other initiatives like to demonstrate to the farmer that when we use the good agronomic practices, we can increase the yield. And we do demonstration plots. We did 17,000 until the end of last year. So to explain how we have to use the inputs, how to manage the water, how to manage the soil health. And by doing all the good agronomic practice, the farmer is convinced, and the farmers around also, the communities around are convinced, and we can try to put him in a virtual loop by increasing his incomes. Because when he increased the the productivity from 30 to 100%, then it's an impact on his livelihood and his family. But for us, now what is important to support this approach of the 10-year action plan as the private sector committed, we think that we should strengthen partnership. And for that, we have been starting one important partnership with the World Bank to scale up those initiatives in some countries. At the beginning, 5 countries in West Africa and Sahel. And then to develop also a hub in Ibadan, hosted at IATA, that is in charge of supporting the implementation of this 10-year action plan with in the region of West Africa and Sahel. Then the second initiative that I can talk about that is also to show and to work as a private sector committed to support the good and the efficient fertilization for food systems, for African food systems. We have been launching with the other actors, stakeholders of the industry, of the fertilizer industry, that are committed to Africa. We have been launching today, and there was a special event for that, at the Pan-African Fertilizer Association. And this Pan-African Fertilizer Association, it's all the players that are, want to work together to support, as private sector, this 10-year action plan of the African 10-year action plan for fertilizer isolate. So I think this is important initiatives, and we should follow up each year, because 2034, it's very close, and we have to follow up each year what's the progress, and trying to onboard private sector, public sector, and DFIs with this common goal to achieve good results.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to build on what Nomsa talked about, which is really that we need to shift the power to young people on the continent. How do we make sure that we change the face of agri-food systems on the continent? How do we make sure that we bring leaders and we introduce and we have young people being the leaders in this sector? How do we make sure that when they're making career choices, this is the sector that they choose to participate in? I think there's something really wonderful that is happening right now. And in this AFS 2025, we've started. There's a young person in every single panel. We are highlighting, we are putting young people center stage of this forum. We are giving them a platform to speak. We are making them part of the solution makers, such that, and that also creates a really big change in their mindset as well, so that even being part of the solutions means that the criticism you're offering is constructive. So I think that one of the big things that we need to look forward to in the future, and this should not take 10 years, the time is now. President Kagame said that in Rwanda, 70% of Rwanda's people are young people. That means young people should be in the leadership right now. The time is now, it's yesterday. So we cannot wait for 10 years, we cannot wait even for 5 years for them to take charge of this sector. So the face of African agriculture has to change. And then the big question then is, how do we measure that? So of course, some of what was talked about is jobs, but we also, at the foundation, we talk about dignified and fulfilling work, which means that you are having work that gives you dignity, that gives you a consistent income, that you are proud to be doing, and that is of good reputation. And most of all, it enables you to rise above the poverty line. So how can we make African agriculture such that it enables everybody who works in it to really live above the poverty line? I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a continent.
Dr. Thompson, the Global Agricultural Productivity Report has tracked productivity trend across continents. What measurable progress have you seen in Africa's agriculture, and where are we still falling short?
Well, overall, total factor productivity, or TFP, which is the metric that we use, it's low across sub-Saharan Africa, about 0.4% per year. We, at the GAP report, we have a global goal of 2% growth per year, and globally, we're only at about 1/3 of that now. And just parenthetically, I would say in Western Europe, in the United States, we're also very much lagging in TFP growth. So it's not a completely global phenomenon, but it's very widespread. So the picture is not very encouraging overall across Africa, but there are some bright spots. We're in one right now. TFP growth in agriculture in Senegal over the past 10 years has been over 3% per year, which is very impressive. Niger is another bright spot. Mozambique, South Sudan, Zimbabwe are other countries in the region that are growing very nicely. However, in East Africa, for example, which in about 2 decades ago, productivity growth was quite robust in East Africa. Now, every country in East Africa has negative TFP growth. So it's quite uneven, but there are bright spots. And I think some examples, again, particularly here in Senegal, that other countries can learn from.
Thank you. Mrs. Namsa, International has youth-led innovations and blended finances. You mentioned a couple of results, but how are local solutions reshaping the food system in Africa, on the continent?
Well, I think that communities know best really what their challenges are, but they also know what their solutions are. So we need to trust communities. And the model that we have at Heifer International is really sustainably locally led development with farmers at the center. And I'm glad that others mentioned that one of the things we need to look at measuring is really an improvement in the standard of living of farmers. Are their incomes, are their incomes increasing year by year? Are they getting a fair price for their products? Are they able to send their kids to school, to get insurance? So I think a qualitative improvement, not just in livelihoods, but in the living standards of farmers is a critical thing to pay attention to. But just to come back to what you were asking, we also need to think about where can we have the biggest multiplier effects as a continent. A couple of people in earlier panels talked about some of the unique crops that we have. Moringa, for example. So developing new value chains is something that we should be seriously putting resources in. Looking at the nutritional benefits of some of those. We've heard already that we have some of the highest stunting rates in the world, but we have a lot of homegrown local products that can be used to combat nutrition. So, for example, we have currently, there was a report that came out saying that a number of African countries are about to run out of malnutritious foods, the products that are used to treat acute and severe malnutrition. A lot of those products have been imported from overseas, from Europe, from the US, and now that those countries are no longer supporting, providing the same levels of aid, those nutritious products are now in short supply. But we can actually be making those products ourselves using maize, sorghum, soy, our own local products. There are results that are showing that using local products to make nutritious foods can have the same or even a greater impact. So we do need to have more faith, I think, in our own homegrown solutions. We need to put more trust in communities, that they understand first and foremost what their challenges are. You know, somebody said earlier that young people need to come to the table, and they need to also recognize that they have a responsibility. Well, these agripreneurs that you know, Heifer International, others are supporting, these are people who have already recognized that there are challenges in their community, and they're not sitting back and waiting for somebody to solve them. They are the ones coming up with their own innovative ideas. They're the ones identifying where the bottlenecks are. They're the ones who are trying to find, you know, different sources of financing. So people on the ground know what needs to change in order for their lives to improve. But we do need governments to support those initiatives. And it's through building this ecosystem, but an ecosystem that first and foremost recognizes the importance of the farmer. Secondly, the communities that those farmers operate within, and then the different actors within those communities that can really bring about holistic change.
Thank you very much. We're told that we need to wrap up, unfortunately, but thank you for your insights. Thank you very much. It's been a great day. Thank you for staying with us. It's almost 6:10. So thank you. Tomorrow is another day. Great panels ahead tomorrow. Thank you and have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Ide jana kanu mandinye shiri sukorasa. Sufeka jana shiri jarabi sukorasa. Na 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 da da na na jarabi sukorasa. Kanu 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 kadinye shiri sukorasa. Ula jana kanu kadinye jarabi sukorasa. Ula jana kanu kadinye ami sukorasa. Jana kanu mandinye jarabi sukor.